Dualities and polarities. 1. The first polarity is self-other. When split into a duality, saving your own skin is the point. You support anything the NWO does or wants. Islam is the enemy, and anything they do is evil. If you experience self-other as a polarity, you observe both players in the drama, and it is easy to see who gains what, and who browbeats the opposite side. Either side will do anything to push its agenda and beat the other side. When you are exploring self-other as a polarity, you are free to select the best of both sides. 2. The second polarity is grounding, letting go. When split into a duality, making money off the conflict is the main goal. You are looking for every opportunity to profit or to eat, drink, and be merry. If you experience grounding, letting go as a polarity, you are seeking ways to widen your understanding of the needs and desires of the so-called enemy, and you encourage people to see that everyone is losing, except for the elite profiteers. 3. The third polarity is integrating in 3D, integrating with spirit. When split into a duality, watching CNN and Fox News is an obsession, while having real beliefs and feelings of your own or feeling the spiritual aspirations of the enemy is impossible. The media always splits events into us against them during a maelstrom. If you experience integrating in 3D and integrating with spirit as a polarity, you observe the whole duality as a drama being created at a great cost to humanity. This is the big movie, and holding the drama and all the players deep in your heart gives them the space and energy to wake, to become conscious. Magnificent hidden truths become visible when hidden hatred is being exposed, yet what if nobody witnesses them? 4. The fourth polarity is feeling power. When split into a duality, feeling all the anger, judgment, and pain is obsessive. Glued to the TV, you relish the victories and horrific disasters as the high point of the day, bombs away. If you experience feeling power as a polarity, look deeply within yourself as a daily practice for the parts of yourself that are creating the drama. Seeing your own dictator within helps diffuse the power mongrels as they growl and snarl on the world stage. This opens your heart so that you can feel deep compassion for the hapless people who are caught in the middle of the whirlwind. You might be moved to reach out and help them. 5. The fifth polarity is creating giving. When split into a duality, you want to get involved in the drama to fight the evil ones. You want to serve in some way right in the conflict, and you don't question its existence in the first place. If you experience creating giving as a polarity, you see the fantastic creativity that is expressed during great conflict. Your heart is swept into the great drama that unfolds when people's lives and the lives of others are at stake. There was a better way to solve cultural imbalances a long time ago, and it can be found again. Blocked creativity always makes people violent. Instead of works of art, we have dead bodies. 6. The sixth polarity is be here now bliss. When split into a duality, the drama is everything, and the only thing going on for you. The maelstrom makes you feel ecstatic, like your boundaries are melting. You can't imagine what you could ever do about any of it, so you feel helpless. If you experience be here now bliss as a polarity, feeling your essence play within the mass events is an eye-opener, a shocker. You can see timelines from similar events weaving in and out of the players, as if they have returned from past lives to get another chance. They have. With clarity in your heart, see how this process works in time, making mass trauma events and religious duality impossible in our future. Let's go back to life in the Oreo cookie. You have a choice. You can keep on being trapped in the gooey white sugar layer between the two chocolate cookies, or you can expand fully into 3D by intentionally maintaining yourself in a polarized state and flowing with the larger field. Imagine yourself as one blade of grass in a field of grass waving in the sunshine and wind and shivering in the rain. Polarized states are very dynamic because they expand your frequency field like a fan. This fan corresponds to the 4D canopy above, which is a great diaphanous web when your mind is not split. When your mind is sovereign because you've been monitoring your emotions, this web pulls you right out of being stuck on one side or the other of archetypal dramas. You may say, oh, I have nothing to do with that. Such is the conflict between the NWO and Islam. Are you sure? Are you never angry at your partner? Have you never taken something you don't need? Have you never ignored somebody who is reaching out to you? Have you never overpowered anybody else? Have you never dropped the chance to create? Have you never just disappeared on people? However, on the other hand, if you examine your life and see that your actions are part of the maelstrom, your dilemmas will fly away like an unfinished card game that is sucked up in a tornado. The P's explain why this happens. They say that they will know that we've changed when we stop killing each other. The interconnectivity of individuals is what opens the portals to the higher dimensions. This reformulates 4D into a diaphanous canopy that dissolves all control agendas. Each one of us can welcome the higher dimensions back into our world. If not, our dimension will be reduced to a repeating card game, and the only interesting question left will be who wins or loses. To understand this subtle structure, I need to go into some topical material to show more examples of how this game is played. Notice what pushes your buttons in this section because that's exactly where you are stuck. The Nephilim and the Burning Bush. As the P's already said, the Anunnaki direct the New World Order (NWO) on Earth by manipulating people with religions. Here's the really juicy tip. The Anunnaki are the same beings as the Nephilim in the Bible, and Nephilim means the gods who came down to earth, the gods who mated with human females. These gods are the directors of the current cycle, which began around 5,125 years ago, when they began dividing up territory to conquer the world. They turned Earth into real estate, and today the world is still being torn apart by these old conflicts and divisions of Earth. The P's say this bloodletting has made 4D into a control net that ensnares humanity. This subject is one of the biggest taboos, so as I go into this in more detail, let us begin by noting that Christianity came out of Judaism, and then Islam came out of Judeo-Christianity. And Judaism came out of Samaria, Akkadiya, and Babylon. If everybody remembered that simple fact, perhaps all the conflict would end in a day. The same saints, gods, sacred sites, and scriptures are the basis of all three major religions, but the NWO splits up the adherents of each religion by dividing up their territory, the precious sacred sites where their gods came down to earth. This keeps them fighting all the time, so they will never join together to eliminate their exploiters. The conflict has grown huge during the last 300 years, since the elite believes the end of the world is coming, or it thinks the Anunnaki are returning to Earth, or it just wants more money. This is hysterical, especially when you learn the Mayan calendar indicates humanity is awakening and slipping out of elite control. True belief in a transcendent God is to trust that divinity is unfolding in time, and reality is not to be manipulated. As you will see in Chapter 9, there actually is a divine plan for Earth that is right on schedule. The story of the Caesars and the Church, how the human race got into this dilemma during the last 2,000 years, has already been told in the last chapter. Now we need to examine the contemporary version of how the net ensnares individuals and traps them in debilitating dualistic states. This net is woven out of the black and white threads spun out of individual dualities, and it constricted almost every part of the world until very recently. The NWO is attempting to reconstruct the world for its own interests during the emerging age of Aquarius, which is simply good planning for the future. If we don't figure this out person by person, the elite will run the next great age. The elite uses the same old religious, magical system that was created 2,000 years ago by Caesar and Church. Currently, the NWO is in residence in Washington, D.C., a city-state designed and constructed by Masons over 250 years ago. 9. Washington was to be the center for all the states, the location for the birth of a whole new world that some thought of as the New Atlantis. It is a classic temple complex with obelisks, pyramids, avenues, and zodiacs, which was said to have been created for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then from 2000 through 2008, the Bush-Cheney regime attempted to instigate total world domination with America as the leader of the New World Order within this Masonic city-state. This is probably not what the Founding Fathers intended. Then, mysteriously, toward the end of the Bush-Cheney regime, a financial crisis in housing and banking ended this takeover. The Bush-Cheney regime was a completely new trend in Washington, which I call attention to because it was such a classic 4D creative shutdown. They were Judeo-Christian fundamentalists who believed that the end of the world is nigh, who grabbed power for 8 years to make sure that certain things happened on schedule, especially in the Middle East. However, the extreme nature of this group caused too many people to look closely at what these three great religions actually believe. The Jews are still waiting for the Messiah. The Christians believe Jesus is coming back soon. Both of them believe they must rebuild the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem to have the kingdom of God on earth. And the Muslims believe their Savior, Allah, has already come to the Dome of the Rock. If Judeo-Christians build the temple, the Messiah will come, just like Shoeless Joe Jackson in the film Field of Dreams. Once the temple is rebuilt, fundamentalist Christians believe that 144,000 chosen people will be saved and everybody else will fry in a Holocaust. The only thing that matters is to be one of the chosen people in Jerusalem at the right time, and everybody else can be damned. Meanwhile, Muslims love to visit Allah's sacred sites, as well as the sacred sites in the Hebrew Bible and the Temple Mount. Since the Americans had the power and were the true believers, they were the good guys. Anybody joining up for the NWO agenda was an American ally, and anybody who refused was the enemy. Such a big program called for a total and systemic reorganization of the United States, such as the creation of omnipotent neo-Nazi agencies like Homeland Security. Mass drama events, such as the destruction of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, were used to bully the people into mass obedience. The people of the world were split into good believers in God or terrorists, a total duality, and then suddenly everything changed in 2008. Regardless of your political beliefs, the election of a black man with an Islamic name while America was going bankrupt shows that the radically split 4D collective field had transformed back into a polarized field where change could happen. Suddenly there was room for many points of view and new solutions to old problems. Human creativity has been unleashed again. If we are to retain our sovereignty in 3D through the completion of the Mayan calendar, we must be grounded in our bodies and adept at knowing where our own minds are. The best way to understand any dimension is to locate it in our own bodies. We are sovereign in 3D when we meditate in our altars and call in the 7 directions. This extremely dualistic cycle through 2008 has been experienced, and a lot of people got valuable lessons from it. Many people felt ungrounded as they were swept into collective dramas. We are living in a time when unresolved dramas are being replayed with the old players back again wanting to get a chance to do things differently in 3D, the only dimension in which timelines can be altered. I find it all fascinating. For example, many of our leaders remind us of past power players, such as Barack Obama showing how much he admires Abraham Lincoln. This is very astute because United States was split into 2 destructive halves during the Civil War, and then this duality was fixed in place by Lincoln's assassination. This split is healing only now. The bankers triggered the American Civil War for profit, which is just like the current financial crash. Many people know what is going on. Many people back in the 1860s also knew what was going on, but now many more people have developed higher consciousness that could prevent a repeat of the same old thing. These are amazing days when we can work with 2D elementals and play with 4D archetypes, while we construct new fields and timelines with our minds. By meditating at your altar, you can practice goddess alchemy, which is changing the world by changing yourself. If millions did this, the world would change just like that. The power lens of the 4th dimension. Imagine yourself at your altar to the directions, or just go there now. Choose a current dilemma that is bothering you, such as the American troops stuck in Afghanistan. Hold this thought in your mind, and once you have a feeling for it, tune into the 2D elementals and then feel the 4D archetypal beings. Ask them to come into your circle to have a conference with you. You want to feel and hear what they say. They may want to channel through you, sing through you, or maybe you will feel like playing music with them. When you can actually feel them in your space, you might feel dense, you may feel, see, or hear a great being. Make some smoke by lighting some sage or incense, because this encourages them to become more solid and present. You will feel the pain of earth. Just allow yourself to cry, rage, or run any feelings through your body, and remember to breathe. Pray with the teachers who have come and thank them. You may be impulsed to smoke a pipe, bless the directions with corn, close your eyes and see a vision, or examine a favorite altar piece. Just follow your impulses as they show you things. My altar has all kinds of creative things on it, such as important letters, photos of my elders, my children's toys, stones, effigies, and feathers. These things offer my teachers ways to instruct me, since they are not present often in ordinary reality. Messages come when we receive spirit impulses, and the opportunity leaves when we do not respond, especially while at our altars. They are so happy to be welcomed that you may feel like a happy puppy as you sense them in your own body. Do not worry about this, since you are sovereign in your circle, but do feel their cues. They are the true inner story of yourself right now. Tune into your body and notice any place where there is a twinge, a cramp, heaviness, or a tingling. Then journey into these places in your body and receive teachings. Then re-emerge and play a musical instrument, bells, whistles, a crystal bowl, rattle, or drum will do, or tune into something in your space, maybe a crystal. Truth will come into your mind and heart when you go in and out of the spirit fields. Your power in the fourth dimension is in your feelings. After you've worked for a while with the teachers who have been present, you may feel some very deep emotions. These are impulses from higher dimensional guides, sounding the octaves in our fields as if we are piano keyboards they can finger. Guides will not come to you until you have processed your own 4D dualities, which are simply parts of yourself that you need to clear. When you process a current dilemma, wounded parts come up that reveal the hidden shadows of your soul. When you see these lost parts of yourself, higher dimensional spirits sweep in to help you clear this energy because this cleansing opens your higher dimensional fields. You can create these miracles as often as you like, which could cause soldiers to lay down their arms. The more you meditate in your altar, the more you will befriend the beings who choose to work with you. They will come more and more quickly if you are willing to clear your shadows. This is how I have gotten to know the Pleiadians, who love to open our hearts. When 5D precipitates into 4D, it is like soft rain in a secluded garden on a summer night when your heart opens. If your body gets excited and you feel fascinated with whatever is around, it is the Ps. They show you your world through their eyes by exciting you and vibrating in your cells. You might really feel someone is with you, or a shiver might run up your spine. Sit up very straight, feel the energy in your spine, and then move your consciousness into the iron core crystal to ground yourself. Feel your body in the center of your altar, and then feel the fire surging up your spine and into your cranium. See the canopy of energy above your body, and feel it crackling and opening. Feel your heart expand with pink light, the millions of waves of light shimmering into your space, and then breathe and close your eyes. You are ready to be illuminated and travel into the fifth dimension of your heart. 5. The fifth dimension, Samadhi and the Pleiadians. Opening meditation. Take a few minutes to catch up with yourself. Find your breath. Find your feet. Remember how you felt after you tracked your feelings to their source. Remember what it felt like to have the weight off your shoulders, off your abdomen, how freely you could breathe. Remember that feeling, and take another breath, this time a cleansing one, drawing air all the way from your feet to your chest. Try it again, until, gently, you can create that feeling, from feet to chest. Feel the movement, the air traveling through your body. Remind yourself that you are the one creating this feeling, you. See if you can raise the corners of your lips, just a little bit. See what it feels like to have a smile on your lips. Hold that feeling, hold that smile, with your next breath. Take another breath, and feel this one right at your heart. Let the air come in right through the middle of your chest. This is you breathing, no one else. This is your movement of air, your life force in action. Identify that. Now begin to feel your chest expand, each time you take another breath. Take your time. There's no need to breathe too fast, just slow and easy, enjoying each cycle of inhale and exhale. Breathe, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, see if that makes a difference. Each time you breathe, expand your chest a bit more. Feel what it feels like to make it bigger, more open. Visualize your heart and see it expanding. Tune into movement, all things moving in your body, and the color green. Open the space around your heart, at the center of your chest, wider and wider, see how wide you can get it open. Take a few minutes to get fully open. That's okay. Just let it open the way it wants to. Stay right here, steady, centered. See how your head feels, see how your abdomen feels. Take note of those feelings, and stay with your breath. Easy, in and out, rising and falling, opening your heart as much as it wants to open. Now, let yourself become aware of any other energy in the room. Is it sunlight? The sounds from the street outside? The song of a bird? A voice somewhere else in the house? Greet those energies with your heart. See what that feels like. See if you can let a little of this energy into your body, through your heart. See if you can send a little energy from your heart to meet this energy. Be creative. Do this any way you like. Now, close your eyes, and imagine someone you would like to be with. It can be anyone from your present life, or from your past. Let that person come to your attention. See that person's face, and feel that person from the center of your chest. Feel your heart gently making contact with that person's heart. If you need to ask for, or receive, forgiveness from that person, do so from your heart. Speak to that person from your heart. Let it take time if necessary. Know that there are no time constraints on this feeling. If you want to just send love to that person with your heart, do so, and enjoy the sensation of sending love from your heart. Experiment with how you send the love energy, aim it, or let it just glow all around that person. Paint this person with the paintbrush from your heart. This person could be a pet, an animal, a tree, a plant, a friend, a relative, a lover, any living thing, past or present. Whoever it is, stay with that one person, and let the process continue until there is no more energy to send, or to receive. Now, take another breath, and bring your attention to your chest area. How is it? Does it seem more open than when you started? Does it hurt a bit around the edges? Then breathe, and let your breath be a paintbrush for your heart. Bring cool, moist, healing energy to your opened heart. Thank your body for being able to open up so much, and know that each time you do this, you'll be able to open more and more. The little hurts are just a part of the process of opening. Visualize putting a healing salve on these hurts. Thank your heart for being so willing to open and receive. Now bring your attention to your breath, and to your feet, to the column of energy running from your chest to your feet. Remember the feeling of your open heart, and know that you can return there anytime you want. Open your eyes, and take a final cleansing breath. See if you can find another smile on the corners of your lips. Good. Now we are ready to learn more about the keepers of the heart, of the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension, 5D, is a realm of light that centers in the human heart and is resonant with Earth's biological creatures and plants. For humans, the light's vibrational frequency is called samadhi, the realizable human experience of communion with the divine. According to the Ps, the keepers of 5D are beings from the Pleiades, a star system that is located in the Taurus constellation, the Great Bull in the sky. The Pleiadians have been the ancestors of many indigenous clans on Earth for at least 40,000 years, as pointed out by several prehistorians. Point 1. The description of this dimension by the Ps, as well as its connection with Earth, is mind-boggling. They say a great spiral of stellar light from the Pleiades reaches our Sun, and our Sun is the eighth of the large stars of the Pleiades. The generator of the spiral is Alcyone, the central star of the Pleiades from Earth's view. Astronomically, this seems bizarre, yet a few astronomers and early Greeks described this same spiralic geometry of light between the Pleiades and the Sun. My Mayan medicine brother, Hunbat's Men, has written about this system, since it is the basis of the long count in the Mayan calendar. Point 2. Somehow the Ps have a great impact on Earth via this system, as if they slide into our world through a nautilus spiral when significant nows arrive, such as the end of the calendar. Figure 5.1. Figure 5.1 Nautilus Shell Spiral. According to Satya in the Pleiadian agenda, as well as to Hunbat's Men, our solar system is being awakened by a band of light, the photon band, which is transmuting Earth's atmosphere. At this time, as the Mayan calendar orchestrates Earth's awakening, the Ps are tuning into our solar system and updating us with the latest news from Alcyone. It is as if the mysterious stellar spiral is a communication system. As one of the receivers of the P news, I have since discovered that the photon band makes sense in light of some of the discoveries of quantum mechanics QM. Here we will consider the new physics from a 5D perspective, having just examined its 4D aspects in the previous chapter. Photons are particles of light that vibrate with frequency waves, which carry the full spectrum of electromagnetic radiation from extremely low frequency waves to gamma rays. High-frequency photons have more energy than low-frequency ones, and an unusually large amount of high-frequency photons are coming to our solar system. Very potent gamma-ray bursts have been reaching our solar system since the 1990s, especially in 1998, which are probably much more intense than most previous ones. 3. Of course, we've only had the technology to detect them for a few years, yet it is possible there is an increase that has something to do with the mysterious photon band. As of early 2003, astronomers have determined that high-intensity gamma rays come from hypernovas, extremely huge supernovas. 4. According to QM, photons split into pairs and travel independently in the universe, yet they are still able to communicate no matter how far apart they move. Photons are conscious in some way. This awakening by high-energy gamma rays must be intensifying the frequency ranges in our minds. Gamma rays are an energy of the highest order we know, which means we're really talking about consciousness itself. 5. Since the publication of the Pleiadian agenda, I have pondered whether there really is a photon band and what it might cause, and I sense that the matching twins of Earth's photons that are located in high-frequency zones, such as in black holes, are communicating strongly with their Earth counterparts. The Ps say gamma-ray bursts cause humans to become seers who are conscious in 9 dimensions simultaneously. They also say they are 5D intelligences who require M fields in 3D to see themselves. I have seen the Ps seeing themselves 3 times. They were small, radiant, luminescent beings that quickened my heart. One afternoon in 1985, a group of them spent hours shimmering in my study in Santa Fe. They say they've come into our dimension to inspire us to become masters of love. Love fosters biological life, the intelligence of the heart, a force greater than our minds, which are merely screens that read frequencies. We are encouraged to empty our minds when we meditate in order to bypass this distracting screen. When we clear it, we flow into a dark inner labyrinth made of pathways into our heart. Unlike 4D, there is no polarization in 5D. Thought travels faster than light, yet love travels even faster than thought. This enables us to recognize our soul mates and great beings who arrive on Earth to radiate high-frequency light, such as Christ, Buddha, and Muhammad. This light vibrates divine immanence, and our response to it is called grace. According to the Ps, Earth is Alcyone's laboratory, and Alcyone is Earth's library. The Pleiadian agenda and this book are records from the Alcyone library. A new sacred culture, harmonic biology, is seeding in the Milky Way, now that our solar system has returned to a key location in its orbit around the galaxy. 6. When the solar system was in this same location 225 to 250 million years ago, Earth was selected, because it holds 9 dimensions in its field, to be the laboratory where biological life would be developed for the Milky Way. The Ps say Earth's new biology will be disseminated in the galaxy on December 21, 2012, like a dandelion releasing silica filaments in the wind. Only life that vibrates in all 9 dimensions will be carried out into the stars. The seeding of the galaxy will be an ecstatic release of Earth, like Shiva dancing with Earth in the galaxy. Many Earth experiments are preparing humans to honor the galactic biological laws. For example, what each geneticist does to DNA shows whether he or she honors life or not. In the Milky Way, the divine first entered our dimension via sound, which is why the Bible says, "In the beginning was the Word." The laws of harmony are spiritual science, which is greater than materialistic science. These laws are the basis of the rest of this book, since materialistic science will never explain or comprehend the 5 higher dimensions. Materialistic science explains the solid world very well, and it also brilliantly investigates many factors in nature that are actually higher dimensional. This is why I seek to identify a science for each dimension. These times are a cornucopia of exciting discoveries. Spiritual science thinks of galaxies as conscious living beings who inhabit and structure the universe, just as we do Earth. Star lore and orgasms. The fifth dimension is light. That is to say, it is the field of the whole M radiation spectrum, and we are mysteriously embodied in this field. As we move into the subtle realms, 5D through 9D, the P's say that each higher dimension has a home in the stars, and they maintain aspects of Earth's field. For thousands of years, humanity understood reality by mythology, the stories of the stars or star lore. The modern world has lost this imaginal connection, which is the source of rich ancient traditions. Star lore is the primordial bridge to the higher dimensions. Jerry and I, two freedom-loving Aquarians, have been reweaving this tapestry of light by exploring higher worlds with groups. Stars are the cells of the galaxies, just like the cells in our bodies. Star lore reawakens cellular memory, memory that is light encoded in our cells. We can actually feel ourselves living in other places and times, such as the Pleiades or ancient Egypt. Cellular memory can be accessed through storytelling, which is why some great storytellers sing, chant, and play their own bodies like instruments. If we do not stimulate our nervous systems, our memories atrophy. The ancient ones gazed at stars and listened to them singing. 7. It would seem we have lost this thread to the divine mind, yet this is not so. Only 100 years ago, Van Gogh painted the stars in the night sky as spinning galactic spirals of light. Star lore's eternal records awaken according to the cycles of light, which is happening now. Earth's photons have pairs in the stars that communicate periodically. These lost twins are returning in the gamma rays. We are hearing the music of the spheres in the heavens. We are not lost or abandoned, we are simply waking up. As Alcyone's laboratory, Earth is where love can be experienced in the physical. The energy in our personal healing fields is directly proportional to the love in our hearts, and we attract Pleiadian partnership by expanding our hearts. As the P's have said, our fields make it possible for them to actualize themselves in our world. The most potent force we humans create is our orgasmic frequencies while making love. The Maya say human orgasms move the galactic center. 8. This may sound crazy, yet as we ponder the vertical axis through the dimensions, the energetics we are reaching for are quintessential. Seeking orgasmic frequencies is the goal of this book, especially since the great Wilhelm Reich discovered they are the source of the life force, the orgone. 9. The galactic center emanates sacred time, then the dimensions spin out of the center, and we are biological on the vertical axis. Maybe we do spin the galaxy with our orgasms. Most sacred teachers point out we can attain enlightenment just by being loving. The only reason to explore the dimensions beyond 5D is to expand our love into even higher dimensions, which is fun. The sixth dimension, 6D, holds the forms of 3D, 7D awakens cellular memory by sound, 8D is God, and 9D spins out the cycles of time. The higher dimensions link 5D to the divine source, and then 5D radiates this love down into the lower dimensions. The fifth dimension is the center of the vertical axis, as our hearts are the center of our bodies. You can experience each one of these fields by traveling up the vertical axis, or you can simply sink into love in our magnificent solid world. After all, love is the total frequency range of the universe. If you choose that path, the way of the heart, Earth is a labyrinth with paths moving into the center and back out again. You can walk the paths, encounter other beings, and shower them with love, just by expanding your field. If you are unitized in the heart, life is a time to seek other beings to love. The only way to know love is to experience it, which draws in the Pleiadians. Many seekers want to understand the universe itself, and you can do so through love. The science of the fifth dimension. Fifth-dimensional science is outrageous and delicious. I begin with topology, the mathematics of correspondences and continuity. As we move into the higher realms, things are explored by means of goddess alchemy. The rules of goddess alchemy are: things must be fun and clear, not cloaked, and exciting, not the cause of snores. My standard for attempting to identify the sciences of each dimension is that each system must have direct results in its corresponding dimension and make little sense in other dimensions. A science of one dimension never eliminates a lower or higher one. For example, 4D quantum mechanics does not supersede 3D Newtonian physics. When the physicist Max Planck introduced QM in 1900 by presenting his theory of the laws of energy radiation, the discontinuous universe, he was afraid it would undermine the foundations of Newtonian physics. It didn't, since the quantum world is simply the microcosmic view. We've needed the 4D QM view to be able even to locate 5D, the dimension where matter unifies. This unification makes more sense when you understand how 4D splits matter. As we grasp for the higher 5 dimensions, we must stretch our minds. To assist our students, we asked Michael Stearns to create music that resonates with 9 frequency levels, otherwise, it can be so hard to detect really high and low frequencies. Some students have the hardest time resonating with the iron core crystal as it resonates at 40 Hz. One thing is sure: to get to the higher levels, we must fully comprehend the levels we're leaving. It helps to conceive of each dimension as planar, 9 flat realms that extend out into circular infinity, figure 5.2. Cosmologists believe the universe is flat while space is curved. 10. Some readers may find they cannot grasp the dimensional concept as a whole until they've considered all 9 and then go back through to fit things together. Figure 5.2. The 9 dimensions as planar fields that expand infinitely outward from the vertical axis. Topology, or, not theory, the mathematics of correspondence and continuity, is fifth-dimensional in all ways. Mathematics is a highly structured language that relates higher orders to things. Generally speaking, all forms of mathematics are 5D because math seeks to find relationships between complex things. Topology's specialty is finding formulas to describe knots that eventually create things in 3D. It studies the places knots where higher orders enter our dimension. Knots are places where chords cross an axis, and the strings that make the knots come from some other place. It's as if the universe were a flat weaving made of knots, like an oriental carpet. Topology is a science that investigates forms from other places that interweave in detectable ways. Topologists are onto something for sure, since their formulas have achieved major experimental verifications. Topology is behind all kinds of biological experiments such as manipulating DNA and cloning, what I call Frankensteinian biology. It is also a weird field of study. Topologists understand the algebra behind their discoveries but not the geometry. Most people tend to think either geometrically or algebraically. I think geometrically, and I like topology in 5D because it leads us into labyrinths, as you will see in a moment. Knots form by the weaving of cords, which can be loosened or tightened, just like knots we've all tied and untied, such as in our shoelaces. Can you remember the magical moment you first tied your shoes? It was a mystical moment for me. Well, topologists spend their time inventing formulas that describe the lengths, holes, loops, and curves of knots. If the strings are followed out to their source, the geometry behind the knots, 6D, is visually obvious to me, yet linking geometry and topology with formulas would take books of calculations. Using topology as a visual, structural tool, I'm able to imagine the knots vibrating with M frequencies. String physicists believe that the elementary particles are not points or dots but tiny, one-dimensional filaments somewhat like infinitely thin rubber bands, vibrating to and fro. 11. Imagine the world as a vibrating field of looping, intersecting knots that end up being matter. In case you're feeling spacey, welcome to the higher dimensions. As a useful bridge, it helps to pull 4 dimensions, 3D through 6D, together into a working concept. This offers a sense of the relationship between 6D geometric forms and things that replicate in 3D. I first understood the relationship between 6D ideas and 3D things when I studied Plato as a child, and it is very similar to Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenic fields that replicate lifeforms in 3D. 12. As a working idea, use knot theory to bridge 3D through 6D. Knots are intersections of lines in 5D, the lines coming from 6D, and the knots untie or tie in the 4D duality field particles and waves and form things in 3D within M fields. Tightening a knot intensifies duality and the consequent dilemmas in 3D, yet loosening a knot fans out polarities and opens perspective. Labyrinths is the way to walk in higher dimensions. The French philosopher and painter Patrick Conti bridges topology and geometry. Of course, he is not a mathematician, yet his beautiful exposition The Genesis and Geometry of the Labyrinth 2002 shows how geometry is always playing in our bodies. It's as if the solution can be right in our backyard. Labyrinths existed all over the ancient world, and Conti notes they are the primordial archetype that bridges this world to the higher dimensions. Labyrinths are an advanced topological knot, and they are paths we can walk, experiential geometry. Thinking of our births for a moment, 3D is a maze in which we wander around with little sense of direction, without knowing if we'll ever get out, and we don't even get an owner's manual when we're born. Yet the labyrinth is the ideal pathway through life's maze, as well as being very much like a vulva. Moving in and out of its center, it is the ideal guide for discovering our inner self while rebirthing consciousness. When people walk in labyrinths, they often have profound spiritual experiences. The path guides the walker into its center, which is the vertical axis that links all 9 dimensions. If you've ever walked in one, remember how you meandered and circled, and then reversed, the tightest reversal being in the center. Our minds and bodies move beyond duality while weaving and turning in this complex knot. Often symbols precipitate in the mind's eye that awaken cellular memory of the geometry that holds our bodies in form. These symbols vibrate with very complex geometry, and as your body moves along the paths, the geometry also vibrates with sound waves. You can feel the land sing, which melts you into an ethereal knowing. Ancient labyrinths are often located at sacred sites, places where telluric energy flows strongly, such as near Tintagel in Cornwall, where some ancient stories say King Arthur ruled Camelot. Labyrinths can be found as mosaics on the floors of churches, such as chartreys, where they mark the pathways of strong earth energy configurations. In the Middle Ages, pilgrims walked the Chartres labyrinth while choirs chanted sacred music above. Labyrinths suck higher dimensions directly down into 2D pathways. Figure 5.4 The SMA, which shows how the heart unites Upper and Lower Egypt. Conti talks about a classic Egyptian knot, the SMA, that is found on the side of the pharaoh's throne. I always wondered about this when I was in Egypt. The axis of this knot is the human heart emerging out of the tracheal column in the center, see figure 5.4. The knot tied on the tracheum unites Upper and Lower Egypt, which resolves duality and opens the flow of the wisdom of the heart. This flow fertilizes the land and supports and enhances living things, which you can see symbolized by the chords that show plants joining. The chords are strings emerging out of 6D that show how plants are replicated from higher idea forms, an ideal image of morphogenic fields. The SMA unites the heart with the breath of life, which teaches each person to breathe the sacred breath with the pharaoh who leads them. 2 strings make up the knot instead of 1, which means the union of Upper and Lower Egypt has been achieved. The SMA is a potent duality resolution. For Conti, the labyrinth is the knot that represents the whole, the essential nature of experience. The axis of the labyrinth is the will or capacity to materialize, while the chord creates the form. For me, the labyrinth circulates us in multidimensional space as we walk in it on sacred land, change directions, and go in and out of the vertical axis. We can trace its pattern, the geometry of primordial unity, with our bodies in 3D, a great way to find our path through the maze of life. Walking our paths intentionally in 3D, we can discover the way of the heart. Next we will examine a scientific theory that actually bridges 5D into 6D, which helps us imagine how our bodies are cradled by 6D morphogenic fields, the ideal forms that replicate lifeforms in 3D, and consider where all these fields come from. The end of time and Platonia. Seeking a wide view of the universe, Oxford physicist Julian Barbour begins by asking what time is. 13. Starting with the subject of time moves him beyond Einstein's limited world of only 4 dimensions. Einstein's relativity theory put time into a spatial framework, spacetime as a 4th dimension. According to special relativity, time and space seem to be aspects of a 4-dimensional reality where events happen that appear to be relative. Barbour argues that time is not like space, and events are not in a 4th dimension since they are not related by time. He says his main aim is to show that instants of time are real things. 14. They are static and timeless configurations in the universe that are experienced by us as dynamic and temporal, which is why time seems to be so real. The configurations are the ultimate things, there are infinitely many of them. They are all different instances of a common principle of construction, and they are different instants of time. Barbour starts with time because the theory used for cosmology, general relativity, and the theory used for the microcosm, quantum mechanics, are incompatible. He notes that the unification of relativity and QM may well spell the end of time. This may sound arcane, yet his new theory of how the universe operates makes sense and can be easily understood with visualization, something that hardly works with relativity. 15. In Barbour's universe, which he calls Platonia because his idea is so similar to Plato's ideas and forms, spatial things are primary reality. He begins with shapes to discover how things exist and happen. Think about it. What you see are shapes, which we know are composed of frequency waves. Yet the question remaining is, how do these frequencies take on shape? 16. Platonia is configured of triangles, cubes, and other geometric shapes, which are compared qualitatively. The world as we know it is made of these shapes and all their relationships, and we experience them as instants of time. 17. In my system, time is generated from much higher dimensions, and it works to think of time as something that is experienced as instants in a world of shapes. Considering configurations, triangle land, Barbour says triangles are formed by 3 dots connected by lines that create nows, events or things in 3D. These dots can also be strings. If there are 4 dots, tetrahedrons form; if there are 6 dots, cubes form. For each configuration, there is a corresponding thing in 3D, and the possibilities are infinite. In Platonia, the land of nows, there are platonic forms, as well as other forms: tetrahedron, cube, octahedron, icosahedron, or dodecahedron, and all the dots in Platonia are potentialities in different quantities. 18. Since 6D is the realm of sacred geometry, why do I have Barbour's theory in 5D? Platonia is also 6D, which comes next, yet we need Barbour's theory here because it brilliantly explains how 5D precipitates out of 6D, or where the knots come from. His theory also provides a context for the potent imprint of the Platonic solids in nature, where geometry is so visible in shells and plants. Platonia links the forms of nature found on Earth with cosmology. Reversing directions and going up the vertical axis, Platonia shows how sacred geometry pops out of the 5D fields, where configurations are vibrating with M frequencies that eventually are seen as things. Imagine the 6D geometry of a labyrinth holding it in form as it vibrates in 5D. Certainly, time and space are not in the same dimension, although we humans experience them this way in 3D, which is the reason special relativity and gravity are not resolved. From my point of view, space exists in all the dimensions, time drives the action and forces in each dimension, and gravity is the force behind everything and generates the whole vertical axis. Returning to the more 5D aspects of Barbour's theory, Platonia, the 6D land of geometric configurations, is permeated with mist, which varies in intensity by the potency of the nows. 19. That is, our ideas in our nows form into mist in the configurations. Intense and repeated nows create paths, which are continuous events played out by systems and cultures, such as technologies, cultural agreements, and beliefs. 20. Barbour comments, time is nature's way of preventing everything from happening at once. 21. History is not something that happens in time, it is a path through a landscape in the mist. We believe in time because we experience the universe in time capsules, yet there is no time. Time capsules are fixed patterns that encode change or history. Point 22. Platonia is eternal, and I would add that 6D is timeless and eternal. However, things exist in 5D via M frequencies that split in 4D and become visible in 3D. Time certainly is not what it appears to be in 3D and 4D, although time is linear in 3D and feelings have time qualities in 4D. Think how time seems endless when one waits for one's lover to arrive. All our conscious experiences, in 3D, have their origins in real structures within the nows, and the intensity of the mist determines the probability of things being experienced. Barber's mist, paths, and time capsules brilliantly explain the connections that create the laws of archetypes, the collective mind, and how probabilities function. For example, history tends to repeat itself unless people learn from it, change the path, and fumigate the mist. His theory also explains how meditation can change outcomes in 3D. Groups could thicken the mist for peace with their minds. A sacred culture could precipitate instantaneously in 3D, since such original paths are very potent in the mist. Many people have experienced ecstasy and initiation in the past, which thickened that mist. The thickness of the mist is critical to identifying why some cultures are sacred, such as the ancient Egyptians and the Minoans. Yet I never mention the Sumerians and the Babylonians this way. This is because the Babylonian, Sumerian culture and its derivatives were, and are not, sacred cultures. They were dualistic and mired in 4D and became obsessed with time. They divided 3D up with calendars that are programs for their agendas. They developed the principle of controlling history by means of artificial timelines. These programs cut off access to unwanted paths in the mist. Seeing this differential is critical, since Western cultures are based on the Sumerian, Babylonian time divisions, dividing the day into 60-minute hours, which cause them to be apocalyptic, always waiting for the end of time. The Western political agenda runs the world by this false time system, yet alternatives to believing the world is coming to an end soon do exist in the mists of Platonia, such as living by the 4 seasons and lunar cycles and understanding the Mayan calendar. Instantaneous states of the universe do happen, which shows that time is not fused in space, much less is real in 3D or 4D. This is a many worlds interpretation of QM that functions in dimensions way beyond 4D, and it beautifully explains how 5D is structured. Most important, all we know about the past exists in current records, such as in our long-term memory, which is chronological. Our brains are a time capsule, and exploration of past lives has proven that most people can go back to times before they were born. Barber thinks of the whole Earth as a time capsule with fossil records and chemical evidence for its creation from a supernova. 23. That is to say, the configurations are part of our cranial structure and our planet. Thus the paths entice us to follow our fascinations to create many nows. The mist explains the continuance of cellular memory and how sacred cultures precipitate from paths into nows when enough people activate a mist to reopen a path. Barber's theory actually explains how geometry precipitates love and creativity. Platonia describes 5D as a dimension where polarities unitize and where forms exist that resonate with the higher and more subtle realms. This view solidifies the links between 6D and 5D, which opens new potential for penetrating 4D and comprehending how things are solid in 3D. Now that we have a few more links, we are ready to explore sacred geometry to see how 6D is formulated out of 5D on the vertical axis. The sixth dimension, sacred geometry and Platonia. Opening meditation. Find your breath. Notice where it enters your body. Does it come in from all around you, or just in through your nose or mouth? Take another breath, and see if you can get the breath to come right in through your throat. From the front of your throat, and through the back of your neck. Try a few breaths this way, gently and slowly. Become aware of your shoulders. Notice how the air comes into your body right in the middle of your shoulders, right where they meet. Close your eyes, and visualize your shoulders like feathers that meet in the middle at your throat. See how light you can make your shoulders. See if you make them rise and fall, gently and gracefully, with each breath. See how your throat is where they meet. Become aware of all of the outer layer of your body. See if you can see yourself like an envelope, with energy inside and a surface holding it all together. See what that shape looks like, and feel what it looks like. Get a good sense of that shape. Now, put your attention on the left side of your body. Just see what it feels like, and see what it looks like. Occupy that side of your body with your senses. See what comes to you. See how far off your body this feeling goes. When you have seen and felt enough, for now, put your attention on the right side of your body. See and feel what that looks like. Let your senses go there, to the right side of your body. Take note of what you find. Is it different from the left side of your body? If so, how is it different? Now, put your attention onto the space in front of your body. Occupy this space with your senses. See what happens when you place your attention on this space. What happens each time you take a new breath in this space? Just notice what you find there. Then, when you have seen and felt enough, go find the back side of your body, the space behind you. What is that like? Can you see it with your inner eye? Can you sense it with your senses? See what you find there. Take your time. This can be a little slow at first. Notice what you find there, using any one or more of your senses. Now, put your attention on the space beneath your feet, whether you have your feet on the ground or are resting on a horizontal surface. What can you feel at the base of your feet, and in the space around the base of your feet? How big is this space? Is there any space at all? Can you feel or see anything in this space? What is it like for you? Finally, put your attention on the space above your head, above your crown. Visualize what is up there. Is it big and expansive, or is it just a place? Can you feel or see anything at all? See if you can make it bigger, more clear, by taking a new breath. Take note of what you find. Now, take a new breath, and visualize your whole body once again. See if your body looks any different from before. This meditation allows you to identify and work with your six-dimensional energy body, your wireless anatomy that holds your form in place. This is a good meditation for helping you take your space on the planet, by helping you see how you occupy your space on the planet. The sixth dimension is the realm of geometric forms that replicate as plants, animals, humans, and material objects in 3D, which is called morphogenesis. For example, the idea of cow exists in 6D and then many cows replicate in 3D, see Figure 6.1. It is also the home of the ka, the human spirit body, which makes it possible for us to read the vibratory ranges that define our bodies, emotions, thoughts, and souls. Our ka knows when to take energy in, when to block it, and when to mirror it back to its source, yet, most people are unconscious of its activities. This remarkable subtle energy body contains the memory of our initiations and therefore holds the records of the greatest potential for any person. Being in 3D linear space and time makes us dense and solid, which tends to make our ka dormant. Most people are asleep throughout their whole lives. You can realize that your 6D form is real just by understanding the relationship between 6D and 3D. Figure 6.1. The idea of cow in 6D replicating as cows in 3D. According to the Ps, the keepers of 6D are the Sirians, beings in the Sirius trinary star system, which is only about 8.7 light-years from our solar system. Our relationship with the Sirius system is extremely intriguing. Even though other stars move in different pathways in the spiral arms of the galaxy, Sirius, the Pleiades, and our solar system all revolve around the galactic center every 225 to 250 million years in the same locational relationship in the Orion arm of the galaxy. Point 1. Astronomically, this means there must be some kind of magnetic, gravitational, or geometric system that makes this possible. Some alternative researchers are investigating the possibility that our solar system is revolving around a companion star. It is even likely that our Sun is part of a binary or multipalt star system. Sophisticated telescopes have revealed that more than 80% of all stars are part of binary or multiple systems. Point 2. The most frequent candidates for our Sun's companions in ancient records are stars in the Pleiadian and/or Sirius star systems. Many cultures, such as the Dogon of Africa and the ancient Egyptians, say their ancestors originally came from Sirius. 3. According to the Ps, the library on Sirius A transmits the laws of sacred architecture, the science of building structures that model 6D geometric forms. They say that great feline gods from Sirius periodically come to Earth to build their temples and found new cultures that can discover the vertical axis. The Egyptians, for instance, built very advanced examples of sacred architecture, such as the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid, and the classical Greeks built the Acropolis. 4. Just as 4D beings like to incite us into acting out their agendas, so do the Syrians enjoy inspiring us to construct sacred architecture. We humans are the builders, which teaches us to experience 6D while holding form in 3D over long spans of time. The Greeks noticed that whatever remains in form through time is reflective of the higher dimensions. The paths and the mist of sacred architecture are very developed. My grandfather, Gilbert Hand, taught me the same thing. He showed me ancient objects that still exist because people venerate them, and he helped me feel and read their codes, records from the past. Because of this, I have a very complex and ancient sense of time. I did not really understand how 6D holds things in form in 3D until I was able to see it one day while looking at the Acropolis from a hotel balcony in Athens. I had a perfect view as the stars rose behind it in the early evening. Staring at the Acropolis with my third eye open, I saw the sky suddenly explode with lines of blue-white geometric forms. I was witnessing the geometric light that holds the Acropolis in form. How our bodies exist in the sixth dimension. The relationship between our solid world and the 6D world of eternal forms that replicate things in 3D is most easily understood by considering the frequency waves that create our bodies. Just like the expanded 6D field that holds the Acropolis in form, our bodies are aligned with our 6D morphogenic or morphic field M field, which is huge. These M fields vibrate with many frequencies, and when our hearts are open, we naturally align with this 6D structure. Heart expansion does not work correctly without alignment with this field, just like the Acropolis would crumble into a pile of old stones without its light geometry. Without our M fields, we'd never look the same in the mirror in the morning. Since you are made of vibrating M particles with oceans of space between them, what invents you every day? Egyptian sacred science counsels that we must learn to feel our Ka reading frequencies, which means keeping our Ka in to maintain the correct energy boundaries of our four bodies. By feeling the different vibratory patterns of our physical, emotional, mental, and soul bodies, we can be healthy without doctors, have love in our lives, understand our world, and be in contact with spirit all the time. With our Ka in, we automatically differentiate the vibratory frequencies of our four bodies, which are radically different. Figure 6.2. The physical body has the lowest vibration, the soul body the highest. Figure 6.2. The vibratory frequencies of the four bodies of consciousness, physical, emotional, mental, and soul. When your Ka is in, unseen frequencies are palpable, are felt strongly at the physical level. This state enables you to identify whether a problem is physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. Speaking of boundaries, when your Ka is in, you can feel what other people are doing to you energetically. For example, when encountering a person who emits great energy, it is useful to know whether this is physical, sexual, emotional, love or hate, mental, ideas, or soul, spiritual. Knowing the level at which a person is approaching you might save your life, your job, or your marriage. When you are adept at reading frequencies, your Ka stays in because you are resonating with it. A good model is observing how your autonomic nervous system regulates your body. Many people have learned to observe their autonomic processes, such as breathing, to sense whether they are tense or not. Once you learn how to observe your Ka monitoring the fields you live in, you will not be able to imagine living without it. If you feel ungrounded or lost, you know your Ka is out. If you embody your Ka well, you can be very psychic. Your body is like a good radio with finely tuned dials, and you are able to be omniscient, or all-seeing, which means your Ka reads frequencies at a distance. This is what Jerry and I mean when we talk about getting activated. Yoga. Egyptian sacred science is most relevant in the modern era, and these teachings have come down to us. Point 5. This suggests they have thick mist in Platonia. Both the ancient Egyptians and the great sages of India taught that yoga is a necessary practice for activating ourselves, because yogic practice moves our bodies in and out of postures that align us with our 6D fields. Point 6. When you were conceived, your electromagnetic field contained a program to guide you through your growth, the pattern of your unfoldment. An oak seed will grow into a great oak tree. Trees hold their fields most faithfully because they stay in one place. We humans lose this alignment more easily because we move around so much, thus we need special practices. Yoga realigns our physical forms within 6D fields. Instead of slouching around in 3D, yoga lifts you out of being a puppet strung up by 4D emotional dramas, or being reamed out by the collective mindset. If you watch cats, they hold yoga postures all day. When they sleep, they seem to be meditating. Cats are very Syrian, which is why the Egyptians revered them. Doing yoga correctly patterns you with your light geometry, which regenerates your body. You are designed to live with your Ka embodied, regardless of what is going on around you. You can vibrate at such a high frequency that most people can't even see you. Many, street-smart, people have figured out how to do this for survival, and it works if you get stuck in a boring meeting or party. The Ps say the 6D Syrians like to infuse their intelligence into our 6D fields to encourage us to create things that resonate with the primordial forms. Just like the Ps say they require RM fields to see themselves, the Syrians find themselves in our bodies and auric fields when we do yoga, play tennis, dance, or perform any correct alignment. I also think golf is a very Syrian sport, which is why it is mystical for some people. It certainly is interesting that golf was originally designed with 9 holes. Jerry feels the same way about baseball, with its geometric field and 9 innings. Initiations, ceremonies that connect us with our formative nature, synchronize our current growth with the pattern of unfoldment that was imprinted during conception. Our Ka holds all the memories of previous initiations, when we were realigned during these key phases. These states can be accessed in past life regressions, since they exist in our bodies as time capsules. Julian Barber says, by a time capsule, I mean any fixed pattern that creates or encodes the appearance of motion, change, or history. 7. The asanas or yogic postures are individual initiations, and since yoga stirs up a lot of fire energy in our bodies, holding them aligns us with the power of RM fields, the kundalini flows and our bodies change. This activates the natural frequencies of the 4 bodies of consciousness, making it easier to distinguish them. The rewards of correct alignment, health, joy, fascination, bliss, and regeneration, are so great that many people persevere and discover the great personal radio dial within that reads vibrations. Personal altars and your Ka. Altars are tremendous accelerators. When you pray to the 7 sacred directions, east, west, north, south, sky, earth, and heart, of your altar, your Ka embodies, since altars are 6D fields grounded in 3D that have direct access to the mist of Platonia. Memory of important paths, such as ancient cultures, can be stored in the objects of these cultures, which are classic time capsules. All this information opens when you pray to the 7 directions in sacred space. You can build an amazing 6D field filled with your own reflections about the world, and there you can be in touch with any place or time. Altars are doorways into other worlds, places where we can ascend through 9 dimensions, which is freedom. This is why the church got them out of people's homes and took control over sacred space. The church methodically destroyed the sacred power objects of the originating cultures, or put them on display in the Vatican Museum or in bishops' houses, since the ancient ones had made many effigies and imbued them with potent records. 8. Recently, indigenous cultures all over the planet have been creating them again and selling them to make these records available to the people. When you are meditating in the middle of your altar and tuning into various objects, as you become more psychic and can discern frequencies better, you may see or feel the lines of light from 6D holding them in form. After all, the frequencies making them solid are vibrating inside. You may find you can feel unread energies in stones and sacred objects, which is really fun. You are more likely to do this when you understand the symbolism and myths of the culture that created them. You might ask what this accomplishes. We are living in a time when 3D is not sufficiently infused with 6D forms because there is almost no sacred science left in the world. This lack of meaning in life causes our world to be split by the 4D zone, and the higher dimensions have almost no access to us in 3D. The most potent link to higher dimensions is personal, such as the special stone or feather you find while on a quest. Photos are another example. They give instant access to people we've lost and miss who are still part of our personal story. The ancient Egyptians were very loving, since they were taught as children to live with their Ka in. Their statues of the ancient ones in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo are so imbued with timeless force that you can still feel their love of the Nile when you look into their quartz and lapis eyes. 9. When we reweave our own threads to the eternal forms, the 9-dimensional vertical axis pushes from earth to sky like a great ancient oak tree. To better understand how this geometric permanence actually exists, let us now consider the science of the sixth dimension. The science of the sixth dimension. According to astronomers and biologists, the universe is very ordered. Light streams away from stars, while on Earth we find complex molecules and complicated lifeforms that exist in sunlight. Only an exceptional initial condition and a great ordering intelligence could be behind this. 10. Sacred science studies order in the universe and seeks correspondences and relationships in the world that reflect divine forces. A realm of geometric forms directs nature. For thousands of years people thought the world of forms was real and that it directs the world. This ended only 100 years ago when Einstein announced his relativity theory. 11. In his way of thinking, concepts such as space and time, which were thought of as separate and absolute, became intertwined and relative. Until the late 1990s, most scientists believed that relativity theory proves that the speed of light is constant and the realm of geometric forms exists only in our minds. Einstein's general theory, however, does not apply to the way I explore dimensionality, and the difference between a relative and ordered universe must be clear. There is a chasm between general relativity and an ordered universe, a dilemma that tortured Einstein in his dotage. A number of physicists are finding fundamental flaws in relativity. See Chapter 7. They are realizing that there was no real reason to drop the directing world of forms, since there have to be geometric structures that hold M frequencies. Whether thought of as tiny little strings or great big triangles, fundamental forms exist that order the universe. Otherwise, all would be chaos. Figure 6.3. The five Platonic solids: tetrahedron, hexahedron, cube, octahedron, dodecahedron, icosahedron. It is difficult to describe the 6D morphic realm without showing how it is derived from sound, the property of 7D, since sound generates the geometry in 6D. Let us begin with imagining Julian Barber's configurations as Triangle Land, a limitless, timeless, eternal world of triangles. Triangle Land is easier to visualize than Tetrahedron Land, a world of tetrahedrons, which already has 6 dimensions. 12. Another way to visualize 6D is by playing with 5 quartz carvings of the Platonic solids, figure 6.3, as I have done throughout the writing of this book. Attempting to see these forms in your inner mind will help you visualize 6D. After all, these 5 forms are the geometric basis of all living things. Imagine the entire 3D universe constructed of these configurations and all their relationships in space. Next, imagine them vibrating with frequencies while replicating things in 3D. For example, see the 6D form of cow replicating as cows in our world, see figure 6.1. Platonia is mathematical perfection, which Barber is able to model, since mathematics relates higher to lower orders. Yet he could not visualize much beyond Triangle Land. Imagine icosahedron land and what it might be replicating. Since the Pleiadian agenda was inspired by my vision of a luminous icosahedral sphere, see Introduction, the 9 dimensions may well be generated from icosahedron land. You will need to study Barber's The End of Time, the next revolution in physics, to take this further on your own, which I heartily recommend. In the 9-dimensional model, the vibrating forms from 6D replicate as lifeforms of every possible variety in 3D, and also as non-living things. The nautilus shell always grows by the Fibonacci spiral. 13 as does the sunflower, as well as many other proportions in plants and animal skeletons. 14. The golden mean phi math ratio of 1.618 determines the Fibonacci spiral, and the spiral is the basis of materialization. At the subatomic level, spin generates primal movement, which begins any materialization, which in turn becomes spiralic in matter. These two factors of spirals regulate how 6D geometric forms replicate in the material realm. The golden mean spiral spins energy from one state to another by shifts in frequency ranges, which are measured in hertz. Simple geometric forms, such as a circle or square, vibrate at lower frequencies. More complex forms, such as an icosahedron made of 20 triangular faces, vibrate faster. The idea is that 6D is filled up with all these configurations, simple and complex, and they replicate in 3D via frequencies in M fields that can be measured in hertz. To my way of thinking, the less complex geometry manifests less complex things, while the advanced geometric forms generate complex worlds. From the ancient Egyptians to the classical Greeks, geometry was part of the search for truth, a way to order the universe. Geometry was an integral part of the physical world, and temples were built to access the laws of perfection in higher worlds and to imprint these laws in the minds of the people. Since I have actually seen this higher order, my vision at the Acropolis, I never doubt that we emanate from geometric configurations, and we can embody these configurations with yoga and meditation. I stress relativity theory here because it has caused modern science to make geometry into a separate science, while algebraic theory spins further out into many worlds. This split is making it difficult to recognize the power of the 6D influence right in our reality and in our bodies. Yet this is the way to discover order in nature and be healthy. Modern science is making us sick by often using only a portion of its own data. We can see sacred geometry, the substratum of all things, in nature, which ought to be taken more seriously than successful experiments in particle accelerators. After all, we can see geometry in ancient fossils. The Platonic solids are the basis of organic life. Julian Barber has brought back the world of forms and offered a new theory that takes us beyond relativity. By practicing yoga, we can mold our bodies into our 6DM fields. Now let's visit some folks on the planet who can actually see the eternal forms that replicate, make art that shows these forms, and relate these forms to the organic basis of life. Shamans, DNA, and biophotons. In the early 1980s, Amazonian shamans told anthropologist Jeremy Narby that they identify the medicinal properties of plants while drinking ayahuasca, a hallucinogenic brew. He thought they were joking, but he decided to study them because international agencies were planning to develop the Amazon. Narby could see that the people were handling themselves perfectly well, and they were deeply comfortable with nature. He wanted to find a way to support the Ashaninka tribal people and their deep knowledge of plants. The shamans said the reason for their knowledge was ayahuasca, so he began by figuring out what they were seeing in their visions. They see visions of brightly colored images that look like DNA, chromosomes, and triple helixes such as collagen, images similar to those discovered and photographed by molecular biologists. 15. Certainly, the people knew how to use the plants for medicinal purposes. Narby suspected they might be seeing the actual language of the plants, DNA, through symbols, and they could somehow interpret them. Scientists do not know how vision functions, that is, how the brain gets information and makes coherent images of things, much less how people see visions. Of course, my view is that the brain reads and transmits M frequencies, which are detected by all of our senses including vision. The people were clearly finding something that actually exists in plants. There was a connection between their plant knowledge and the content of their visions. Shamans often see serpentine images, especially double ones, which resemble the DNA double helix. The DNA molecule is a single long chain made of two interwoven ribbons connected by 4 bases. DNA is both single and double, just like mythical serpents. While having visions, shamans must find a way to interpret what they are seeing. In this case, serpents are their best representation. In contrast, the biologist who takes ayahuasca might see strands of actual DNA, with which he or she is more familiar. The DNA replication mechanism is the same for all living things on Earth and always has been. Earth's surface has changed many times, yet DNA and its replication process is always the same. That is, DNA is the mechanism for 6D replication in 3D. Narby concludes that DNA is the origin of the shamanic knowledge. Incredibly, these shamans can read DNA language while in an altered state. But how? Is there a neurological basis to this skill? DNA emits photons, which are electromagnetic waves in the narrow band of visible light. These emissions are called biophotons. These emissions have a high degree of coherence. Researchers say DNA is an ultra-weak laser, a split beam that can produce holograms, and a coherent source of light, like a laser, gives the sensation of bright colors, a luminescence, and an impression of holographic depth. 16. Molecular biologists who study biophotons describe these emissions as cellular language, a form of subtle biocommunication between cells. These waves direct internal systems, and they communicate among themselves, and even between other organisms. As Narby realizes, this could explain how plankton cooperate in swarms as if they were superorganisms. Quartz devices are used for the experiments on biophotons, such as the device used to detect the ultra-weak laser emissions from DNA. Quartz crystals have been used forever as tools by indigenous people to detect frequencies. In fact, they are excellent receptors of M waves or frequencies, since they are piezoelectric, or flash with light when you rub them together. Quartz crystals always grow by hexagonal or six-sided geometry, and remember, the iron core's crystalline structure is hexagonal, see Chapter 1. I use quartz crystals as devices for divining M fields in things around myself. I also use quartz to hold data banks, so that I need not remember too much all the time. When I am working on a big data bank, I receive data in holograms. When my head gets too packed, I send the monad of thoughts into a crystal, which I keep in my work area, such as one of the quartz platonic solids. The crystal emanates it back to me when I need a recall or a quick start. That is, I encode the crystal with time capsules, and then I can recall the path that accesses the mist when I want to. Narby is suggesting that shamans have learned how to defocus their consciousness to see DNA. This is true because any working shaman already knows how to do this. It is just very hard to explain to people who don't think it possible. It is how people just know something, for example, how a medical intuitive like Carolyn Miss can read organic imbalances. Next we will explore an incredible ancient system that connects the 6D world of forms with cultures in 3D by means of sacred geography. Sacred geography and the Wheel of 12. The French scholar and writer Jean Richer studied the orientation and siting of many ancient temples in Greece. 18. The axis of each temple is usually aligned to the rising of heavenly bodies, and the god of the temple is symbolized by various planetary deities. By identifying which planets are which gods, he established the existence of complex astrological systems. He has concluded that the Greek landscape is a huge zodiacal pattern made of wheels of the 12 astrological signs. The landscape mirrors the zodiac, a classic, as above, so below. All the main sacred sites are marked by famous temples and mountain peaks. Jean Richer simply proved his theory, and he left it to other researchers, especially mythologists, to apply it to their own fields, and for others to ask, why these patterns? Why would any culture go to this much trouble? Luckily, Jean-Michel and Christine Rohn pursued this question in 12 Tribe Nations and the Science of Enchanting the Landscape. They discovered that astrological systems made of giant zodiac wheels exist all over the whole world. Some of these remnants are thousands of years old, and the most famous one is the 12 Tribes system of Israel. 19. This complex ancient landscape system that relates the sky to the land is a proven fact about our planet. It is truly remarkable and mind-boggling, yet most archaeologists and anthropologists just ignore this finding. 20. Michel and Rohn conclude that older civilizations used this system to maintain stability by what they call the principle of enchantment. 21. They constructed complex systems of temples utilizing features in the landscape to ground higher dimensional forces. Within these systems, art and ceremony occurred based on seasonal time cycles that wove together the mundane and spiritual realms. They believe that this form of life is the most conducive to human happiness and freedom, as well as assuring that communities are settled and peaceful, which contrasts sharply with the lack of stability in modern life. These systems were a global method for drawing down the 6D world of ideal forms, in this case cultural, into 3D. According to Michel and Rohn, in the land arranged and marked according to the zodiac, the activities in each region were scheduled by the seasons. This system regulated every aspect of life from the ceremonial systems to the arrangements of clans, villages, and families. Where you were born was the archetype you expressed during your life, and everyone created art, drama, and music that expressed his or her own archetype. People would travel to enjoy the mystery plays, myth, and music of the other clans, and this maintained the people in harmony with nature. Michel and Rohn think this system is the Celtic version of the Grail. It is said that one who drinks from the Grail will return to the state of being in the primordial vision. This can only be achieved via sharper and more intuitive perceptions. The zodiac wheels made it possible for people to find enchantment by making the landscape into a cosmology, a model of the universe. Plato says that by musical control the ancient Egyptians preserved their civilization from corruption for more than 10,000 years. 22. In his laws, Plato calls this a canon of sacred music. 23. Plato was an initiate of the Heliopolitan mystery school, which invented the nine-dimensional model. 24. If Plato says the Egyptians did this for 10,000 years, I think we should believe him. I think of the return of the enchanted landscape, the Grail, as a potent mist, since so many people seek it today. The mystery plays and ceremonies were carried out yearly to express the potent 4D archetypes that were flowing through the people. The patterning of the land by geomancy enhanced the 2D powers, while the temples calibrated heavenly frequencies so that the larger cycles of time could guide evolutionary unfoldment. Michel and Rohn use the term enchantment because in medieval times, monks and nuns used chanting to bring higher dimensions to earth. This is a classic example of 7D sound-making forms in 6D that are perceived by us in 3D. These experiences connected all the people to each other, making 4D into a circulating river of time that pulled in higher dimensions. To better understand this idea, we need to consider astrology, a potent mist in Platonia. Astrology and the sixth dimension. Another form of 6D access is through the practice of astrology, which involves knowing the archetypal patterns in your natal chart and observing how the movement of the planets, moon, and sun, transits, influence your birth chart. Unlike sacred geography, this practice is still used by many modern people. Astrology was the basis of the principle of enchantment described by Michel and Rohn, as well as the basis of Richer's Greek temple system. Modern astrology is psychodynamic and helps us to pull ourselves out of linear time by showing us how the drama of life is artificially pressed into past, present, and future. Besides offering a wide time perspective, astrology teaches people that various planets have different effects on events and emotions, and links people to higher fields. Once you start thinking this way, often you are able to access very high dimensions available right inside the feelings and events going on around you. Feelings are awesome because they intensify 4D, which makes it easier to detect frequencies from 5D through 9D. Cultures ruled by enchantment taught people how to recognize these influences and express them as a group in geography, art, astrology, and seasonality. What a rich life that was for thousands of years. Until writing this book, I thought of astrology as a 4D practice, since the planets carry the 4D archetypal forces, such as Mars ruling war or Venus ruling love. However, astrology is a 6D art because it teaches us how to manage the 4D archetypal forces and to align our emotions with our originating form. I discovered the Wheel of 12, see Chapter 3, when I was called to teach large groups after doing natal readings for many years. I developed it to help students free themselves from 4D duality so they could move up into higher dimensions. There is great similarity between the sacred geography Wheels of 12 and my system, which is an instant balancing tool that is suited for modern life. Using the Wheel of 12 is often magical for people, just as the enchanted landscape must have been. Maybe the ancient people used astrology in ways similar to the Wheel of 12, or maybe it is getting charged in the mist by all the people using it these days. Long ago, the ancient ones lived when it was still possible to hear the sounds of the heavens. They knew about the potent effects of sound on consciousness, and they seemed to know about the science of sound, sonics. They used 7D sound to create 6D geometry to open their 5D hearts, while they spent their days playing with the 4D archetypes to maintain peace and harmony in 3D. As you will see next, sonics was highly advanced for thousands of years, which is perhaps the best explanation for how prehistoric people constructed megalithic complexes from stones weighing many tons apiece. Much evidence for ancient sonics is being discovered at the present time, which is very exciting. 7. The seventh dimension, the galactic highways of light. Opening meditation. Sit back and let your body find itself. Find your breath, find your feet. Let go of your brain for a while, it's like a muscle, and it has been working hard for you. Let your eyes relax, they have been working hard, too. Let your eyes just notice the light and colors around you, and the spaces around you, as a big, soft, comfortable blur. The only focus you need is when you read these words, and you can do that slowly, as you breathe, letting your body settle a bit more with each breath. Become aware of each breath as it comes into your head. See if you can feel how each breath seems to fill your head, right out to the edges. Play with this feeling inside your head. Breathe slowly and mindfully. This is like giving your brain a massage. Experiment. Continue to relax your eyes, to make your focus soft, and continue to relax and settle down in your body. Now become aware of the middle of your forehead as you breathe. Let each new breath come into your body through this area. How does that feel? Can you feel an opening there? Can you visualize this happening inside your head? Notice any sensations you may be feeling there, and just stay with your breath, and with these sensations. Now, find your mind. Your mind is where your thoughts come from. Your mind is your brain being conscious of itself. It should feel relaxed and soft. It is resting. Now, see if you are curious about anything, some place or thing you'd like to travel to. See with your inner sight where you go. See if you can hear any tones, high or low, beckoning from a distance. Travel with your mind to anywhere you want to go. Breathe, and see how each breath takes you farther, how each breath makes each vision clearer. Stay with this vision as long as you want to. Let the vision teach you, show you. Enjoy your visit, your ability to see at a distance. When you return, travel into your mind through the middle of your forehead. Dial up another vision, go to another place, any place. Experiment. You are traveling the lines of light in the galaxy. When you are ready, take a deep breath, and find your body. Find your feet. Feel the center of your forehead. Become aware of your breath filling your whole body. Remember the visions you have received, and know that it is there for you to return to at any time. The seventh dimension is a realm of cosmic sound that generates the 6D geometric forms by vibrational resonance. Sound originates in the vibrational frequencies of the spinning, orbiting bodies in the universe, but what moves the bodies? According to the P's, the divine mind or God influences all the bodies in the universe by movement and measure. In the Milky Way, cosmic sound travels within the great 7D photon bands that structure the galaxy itself, figure 7.1. Within the photon bands, 8D, thought waves of light, step down by octaves into lower frequency 7D sound waves. These waves circulate galactic energy into the spheric field of the Milky Way. Since sound waves are lower frequency than light waves, these waves sing the divine mind. The great photon bands spin out of the galactic center, circle within the galactic sphere, and then return through the center torqued by the galactic plane's powerful axial spin. This classic torus donut dynamic is generated by the great vertical axis that rises out of the galactic center at right angles to the galactic plane. Fountains of light rush through it and circulate, and these galactic highways of light carry 8D thought waves as high-frequency light. The divine mind permeates the whole galactic sphere, while the 7D zone is within the torus that holds the form of the galactic plane. These singing bands generate parallel possibilities in 3D, or synchronicities, in which we humans can sense the intentions of the 8D divine mind. If we follow these leads, life becomes a dance in the higher dimensions. The photon band that is now activating Earth, see Chapter 5, is a key part of the Great Milky Way structure. The photon band has joined Alcyone, our Sun, and the Sirius star system in a synchronistic flow that started 225 million years ago, when Earth was selected to seed the galaxy with its biology. Now that our solar system is being activated by the galactic center, Earth is experiencing the 9-dimensional activation, which is transmuting its biology. Sacred cultures that mastered multidimensional consciousness in the past are needed for guidance, such as the Maya, since scientists are only now beginning to consider multidimensionality by means of superstring theory. The keeper of 7D is Andromeda, which is now converging with the Milky Way while all other galaxies are moving away. 1. Andromeda is visible as an exquisite spiral in the night sky spinning just outside our galactic plane. The Ps say Andromeda has a huge influence on the Milky Way, especially within our solar system, since Andromeda has a similar solar system. Within it, there is a planet called Ion, which is like Earth in every way, with a similar location to its Sun, good climate and atmosphere, and a fecund biology that replicates. The only difference between these two solar systems is that Ion did not experience a great cataclysm, as Earth did 11,500 years ago. Ion's inhabitants are devoid of collective trauma, and all the higher dimensions freely enhance its biology. Ion directs its cultures with cosmic sound and light codes by using sacred science. In Andromeda there is no splitting or separation from God, while in the Milky Way, as we near the end of the Mayan calendar, we are remembering Gaia's biological codes. Because Andromeda has retained this biological knowledge, it is the keeper of 7D for Earth. Andromeda transmits harmonic records by sound from the Ion library to the center of the Milky Way, and the vibrational intensity of the records is rising exponentially. This is indeed a powerful mist in Platonia. As you will see in Chapter 9, time acceleration is speeding up Earth's evolutionary processes. This is clearing out the human collective trauma from the cataclysm, making people sovereign in 3D again. According to the Pleiadians, in light of this gross distortion in 3D, Andromeda created a new program 2,000 years ago called the Cosmic Restart Button. They sent Christ, a 9D Messiah, singer of God's frequencies, to Earth. He came to reawaken love in the human heart so that each person could heal from trauma, and the Ps say our DNA reformulates by love. In those days, the people got the message because Christ was human in all ways and infused his blood into Earth. The truth is, Christ fathered children, a seminal act that awakened Earth's biology. 2. This story, the hidden teaching of the Holy Grail, has been carefully guarded. The Messiah threatened the elite plan to control Earth. Regardless of the elite agenda, Andromeda as the keeper of 7D for Earth, their cosmic restart button, is working, and now our galaxy is being informed about harmonic biology and undamaged DNA. The Ps also tell us that the new energy coming to Earth from Andromeda is being received in our hearts. Christ seeded humanity with grace, which draws each one of us to a new level. We are withdrawing from the elite organized religions and reclaiming the sacred. Satya, saucy as usual, says we are remembering the erotic Christ, the cosmic progenitor of humankind. Organized religions deny the very nature of the alchemical male, which is why this juicy force has been perverted into sexual abuse. The building wave of grace is freeing the minds of the people, who feel the potency of the Grail. Many people now know that Christ was married to Mary Magdalene, and that he seeded a 9D bloodline into Earth's people. 3. To elucidate how dimensional shifts work, we will move down from 7D into 6D. Notice in Figure 7.1 that the photon bands are all interconnected in the galactic center. This central weave distills pure thought into the 6D geometric lightforms, the configurations of Platonia. When the Divine Mind, in the galactic center, sends out new patterns, the mist in Platonia shifts. Moldy old ideas about big institutions, such as the New World Order and the Vatican, collapse like punctured balloons. New domes of mist vibrate with inspiring ideas, such as Christ being a lover and a father. The erotic responses of the people thicken the nascent, glowing mist. By following whims and creating new realities in 3D, the corresponding mist thickens and new things manifest instantly in the solid world. Have you ever followed up on an intriguing course of action, and it manifested so quickly that you could hardly handle the results? This is a sign you are really in tune. Creation works best when you move quickly to grasp the potential or seize the moment. When we ignore hot and juicy ideas, the pregnant mist dissipates. Then the old mist grows right back, and Platonia fills up with fog. The New World Order knows all about Platonia and the mist, which is why the science of geometric forms was eliminated from elite-controlled education. The elite reserves real knowledge for its own use while it mind controls the public. It thickens the desired mist by working with Hollywood, Holyrood, to create ideas to be implanted in the public mind. Remember, each individual mind has the same power in Platonia. Everyone has one vote and can instantaneously draw down his or her own ideas. Since, we the people, greatly outnumber the elite, we are the most potent force, which is why the elite programs are so huge right now. The elite farms the mist by culling minds, such as through television. The exquisite Andromeda galaxy is beaming out a potent twinning force as it spins and weaves near the Milky Way. The message from Andromeda is take control of your own mind now. The Ps say that 7D sound is the communication system of the galaxy. In 3D we get threads of this system through birdsong and the migratory patterns of birds. Have you ever wondered how birds migrate? They orient by galactic energy lines, which they follow in Earth's magnetic fields. An incredible film on birds in flight, Winged Migration, came to the theaters while I was writing this book, and it will help you to understand 7D. The Divine Mind moves energy within gravitational fields, while birds hear this movement and mimic it by their flight and song. Because we are filled with grace, birds enhance our creativity. As bluebirds sing and fly, they attune 3D to the blue band that surrounds Earth, the place where cosmic sound meets the outer boundary of Earth's gravity. We can radiate our love out into the whole biosphere by attuning our minds to this gravitational sound boundary. You can soar beyond terra firma in your heart and see Earth as the blue planet in space and remember your role as keeper. When you attain this consciousness, birdsong informs you in ways that no language can. Jerry recalls that whenever he felt lonely or lost, he would lie down at the edge of the forest and listen to birds calling in the trees overhead. Language has divided humanity, simply because it is so mired in 3D. Birdsong and sacred music pull us beyond duality and attune us to high celestial frequencies, which draw our consciousness to the outer edges of Earth's gravitational field. When you were in mystical bliss while living in ordinary reality, you've gone there. There have been times when Earth cultures maintained themselves in bliss by sacred sound. Language and writing were of little interest to them, except in the mundane. Sacred sound thickens and quickens the healthy biological mist. At this time, celestial sounds quicken Earth as Andromeda beams our galactic center. Cosmic consciousness is becoming audible on Earth by sacred sound from the galactic center. We are being reattuned with nature. The science of the seventh dimension. I will begin by summarizing what is known about sound and frequency waves. Sound functions in both the audible and inaudible frequency zones, which are of lesser magnitude than light. All sound vibrations are grouped in octaves, or sequences of 8 notes. The easiest way to grasp this is to consider the piano, see Figure 7.2. The white keys play 7 or 8 octaves, or groupings of 8 notes. Each octave is C D E F G A B C, with C repeating as the beginning of the next higher octave. Each key vibrates at a certain number of pulses per second, Hz Hz, and each octave is a doubling of frequencies. For example, lower A is 220 Hz, middle A is 440 Hz, and higher A is 880 Hz, and when one A is struck, all the others in the piano vibrate with it. This is the principle of resonance, the vibratory responses of frequencies, such as the as on the piano. What is going on? Figure 7.2 octaves on the piano. Sound is the vibration of air molecules, which we measure by pulses per second, or hertz. The vibrations of molecules create solidity, sound, color, light, and all living beings. Light vibrates at a very high frequency many octaves above sound waves. White light is a frequency range like sound called the visible light spectrum (VLS), which breaks down into color. Red is the lowest frequency, violet the highest, and it goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. This means you resonate with higher frequencies by wearing violet and lower frequencies by wearing red, which is why gurus wear violet robes and barflies wear red dresses. These simple octaves underlie all matter, everything is made of vibrations. Once this is fully comprehended, it makes sense that the many dimensions could form in planes where certain frequencies vibrate. We cannot see or hear extremely high dimensions, just as we cannot hear sound much above the range of the piano keyboard. But literally anything could be vibrating in these higher zones, but such things would not be physical, as we are in 3D. The easiest way to grasp dimensionality is to think about frequency waves in octaves and to visualize objects as frequency wave patterns. The human audible range is of a much lower frequency than the visible light spectrum. Pianos and tuning forks demonstrate the audible vibratory ranges. The principle of resonance and octaves shows that frequencies get higher and higher. Every time the notes of the scale, C through C, are doubled, we have a new octave. Imagine doubling them over and over, and moving off the piano and out of the audible hearing range. If you could do this, eventually you'd be up to the frequency of light, and if you kept on doubling, you'd discover gamma rays. We resonate with all these frequencies. Like C resonating with C on the piano, we resonate with very high octaves of sound and light whether we are conscious of it or not. How light functions is the subject of 8D, yet for now it helps to know that we are resonating with light when we hear sound. Cymatics. Moving back down dimensionally, we will consider how sound creates 6D geometric forms. There is an actual science that studies this action. Cymatics, the study of the geometric patterns that are made by sound, which makes sound-creating form visible. As we discussed above, frequencies are just molecules moving in air, many of which we cannot see, yet devices have been constructed that register and measure them. To see sound frequencies, all we need is a medium, something that makes visible the geometric forms of the molecules. Actually, this is quite elementary, but I sure got knocked over the first time I saw a cymatics machine. Jerry and I took a course in sound healing with John Beaulieu, who demonstrated how sound creates geometry. Point 4. John's cymatics machine has a thin copper disc about 25 inches in diameter, which has a copper rod through the center. The copper rod is vibrated by various tones being tuned up or down, raising or lowering the frequencies. The disc is covered with a very thin layer of extremely fine sand, silica, and the tones generate geometric patterns in the sand according to frequencies. With each tone, the design alters dramatically. As we watched the sand flowing, it clearly moved according to geometric forms that have borders and vortexes of inner flow. We could see sound making geometry. This shows how sound creates geometry, which eventually replicates things in 3D. We witnessed 7D down through 3D in action. The main developer of cymatics, Hans Jenny, MD, used many different mediums, such as jellies and sand, to make the patterns of sound visible. He has made videos of how the changes in frequencies alter shapes in the mediums. Low frequencies create simple geometric forms, and high frequencies create very complex forms. Watching a cymatics experiment makes it possible to see that everything oscillates, vibrates, and undulates in nature, which results in organisms and things. Forms are all patterned by vibrational frequencies that lead all the way up to sound and eventually to light. This can only be observed through mediums that show frequencies in action. Frequencies are the basis of everything. I've mentioned many times in this book that the Platonic solids are the basic geometric forms that make up all matter, yet this does not mean much until you see it in action. Point 5. When the sand in the cymatics machine responds to tones that vibrate the plate at a certain frequency, the geometry moves in, around, and through tetrahedrons, cubes, octahedrons, and so forth. We watched the Platonic forms being created by vibrations. The mathematician and astronomer Gerald Hawkins has established that the octave scale is often the basis of crop circles. Point 6. The end tips of the forms can be used to draw large circles, while there are various circles within the designs themselves. Figure 7.3. When he divided the surface area of the inner geometries by the areas of the outer circles, he found that they often show octave relationships, the diatonic scale. The octaves increase by ratios, which means this geometry is harmonic, or has pleasing resonance. Since many crop circles show the octaves, they are showing sound-creating geometry, just like the cymatics machine. We can be sure crop circles are important because the elite works so hard to debunk them. See chapter. Frequency ranges are measurable, and humans can see, hear, and feel a limited portion of the total range. By understanding how detectable frequencies function and knowing they increase exponentially by octaves and resonance, we can infer that high-frequency dimensions are real in the universe. We cannot know the name of God, simply because this frequency is way beyond language and our dimension, the ineffable, yet we can be sure God is there. By resonance, we feel divine grace, and the more we know this, the more we can raise our own frequencies in response. Physics has responded to this situation by birthing a new branch of study called string theory, which includes superstring theory, that is actually reaching for the ineffable. Although very complex, string theory operates in 7D and shows how the 9-dimensional system functions mathematically. String theory first gained wide scientific respect the same year the Pleiadian agenda came out, in 1995, yet only physicists had access to its formula at that time. Superstring theory and a variable speed of light. String theory catapulted to a new level in 1995 when one of the most brilliant physicists of all time, Edward Witten, ignited a second superstring revolution. The first revolution was from 1984–1986. Witten formulated M-theory, which unifies the 5 string theories, and created a context for 11 dimensions. The fundamental entities of string theory are incredibly tiny, vibrating strings that have spatial extent but no content. That is, the basic energy units of matter, quanta, are oscillating strings, not atoms or particles. The observed particle properties, electrons, quarks, or neutrinos, are simply reflections of the various ways the strings can vibrate. Light waves are always traveling, and everything is vibrating. Just as a violin string vibrates and we hear specific notes, the vibrational patterns of the strings give rise to different masses and force changes. According to string theorist Brian Greene, there is a direct association between the pattern of string vibrations and the particle's response to the gravitational force. Gravity dictates the rhythm of the cosmic dance. The graviton, smallest particle of gravity, is one particular pattern of string vibrations. Just as an electromagnetic field, such as visible light, is composed of many photons, a gravitational field is composed of many gravitons. Point 8. Many vibrating strings are executing the patterns encoded in the dimensions as well as creating material things. The very fabric of the dimensions is a pattern of vibrating gravitons with different frequencies. The electrical charge, the strong and weak charge, and gravitational fields are determined by the precise ways the strings vibrate. Greene uses the poetic image of the strings as the threads of the spacetime fabric. 9. In string theory, the nature of all matter and forces is the same. What appears to be different particles are notes on particular strings. Everything in the universe exists by these oscillating, vibrating strings. Many physicists are seeking a unified theory of the micro and macrocosm, and Greene notes that string theory is a cogent framework for merging quantum mechanics, general relativity, and the strong, weak, and electromagnetic forces. 10. String theory is building a beautiful bridge between the microcosm and the macrocosm by discovering that the properties that distinguish one particle from another, mass, force, charge, and spin, are the same as the properties that distinguish one black hole from another. Green comments that black holes might actually be gigantic elementary particles. This leads to the idea that there is a potent transmutational relationship going on between the oscillating massless strings and the gigantic vibrational patterns of black holes. These ideas give support to theories of dimensional structures that can hold such energy and structures. String theory equations are unbelievably complex, and few people comprehend them, yet their laws are being aggressively pursued. Green notes that the actual shapes of the extra dimensions imagined as Calabi-Yau shapes, see Figure 7.4, determine whether the configurations appear as black holes or elementary particles. 1. String theory has a very different interpretation of the microcosm from quantum mechanics, and it works perfectly well in the micro or macrocosm. String theory opens the doors to understanding 7D because it explains the nature of movement in the universe in the smallest and largest realms. Non-scientists who have quantelectromagnetic plated electromagnetic frequencies and the visible light spectrum can sense out string theory. Non-scientists who have contemplated M frequencies and the visible light spectrum can sense out string theory. The strings vibrate by all the forces, including gravity, since their energy comes from vibrations and windings, such as the knots in topology, see Chapter 5. As we move up the vertical axis and wander into some very high dimensions, the physics gets extremely complex, which is accurately reflected by string theory. The structure that has emerged since 1995 in string theory, 11 spatial dimensions, is so close to the Pleiadian system that it is basically the same. I will cover a few aspects that have to do with dimensionality. Take M theory, for example. Its integration of 5 different string theories means that string theorists are describing 5 different views of one grand theory. The 5 string theories are each equations that describe non-extended dimensions that curl up into this dimension. For the last 100 years, the laws of physics have been associated with symmetry, a property of physical systems that enables them not to change when the system is transformed in some way. A sphere is rotationally symmetrical, since it looks the same when you rotate it. As physicists and mathematicians have probed ever deeper into nature, the importance of symmetry has been growing, and now it appears that everything in the universe is operating by exquisite supersymmetrical laws. 13. In the latest superstring theory, the incredible energy inherent in the vibrating strings requires 11 dimensions in the universe. 14. The laws of physics are always the same everywhere, from the smallest to the largest things, yet things do not look the same because of vibrations and dimensionality. Considering 11 dimensions for a moment, there are 3 extended spatial dimensions which the P's describe as 1D through 3D, and then string theorists consider 8 more. But, where are they? Figure 7.4 shows 6-dimensional geometric shapes, called Calabi-Yau spaces, on a 3D grid, as an example of what physicists create for visual assistance to imagine how non-extended dimensions, subtle, in the Pleiadian system might interface. 15. To describe the dimensions, string theorists use a concept called branes, the latter half of membranes, which are planar, 2-dimensional objects and not just flat. A one-dimensional brane, one brane, is the basic vibrating string itself. A 2-brane is the membrane of a dimension. A 3-brane is an extended object with 3 spatial dimensions. 4-brane is space-time, and it goes up to 9 branes. The idea is that maybe we live on a 3-brane, a huge 3-dimensional membrane to which a time dimension is added, and we're stuck in it and can't see out of it. 16. Considering figure 7.4, we are stuck in 3D and can't see out of it, yet all the higher dimensions are imagined interfacing with us via Calabi-Yau shapes on a 3D grid. The M-theory illustration, see figure 7.5, is Witten's model of the unification of the 5 theories, in which the branes are on equal footing. For readers who know something about M-theory, the illustration takes a stab at placing 5D through 9D into brane theory. The first 4 dimensions are contained within the star-like figure, The next 5D to 9D, are noted. 10D is the vertical axis, and 11D is supergravity, or the all-encompassing fabric. I made my own judgment on where to place 5D through 9D by considering the connections between the 5 theories, since nobody understands what these equations really describe. The brains sound exactly like the 9 dimensions, and the string physicists add a vertical axis, which is actually 10D in the Pleiadian system, while 11D is the container. 17. My main focus is how all this relates to the vertical axis model, and remember, the P said we are now developing the capacity to understand 9 dimensions, not 11. What first made me think string theory might be the 7D hard science is that string theory also offers a scientific basis for the 7D Pleiadian, galactic information highways of light. Obviously, the galactic highways of light are some kind of high-energy transportation system in the galaxy. Physicists study cosmic strings, hypothetical objects predicted by some particle physics theories, that are long threads of concentrated energy extending across the universe. 18. Portuguese physicist João Magalhães, who has proposed important theories for a variable speed of light as opposed to Einstein's constant, has written equations that show that the speed of light could become much faster in the vicinity of these cosmic strings, as if a coating of high light speed enveloped it. This would create a corridor with an extremely high speed limit extending across the universe. Magalhães realizes that these corridors would mean a space traveler could move at very high speeds, which some people, such as some physicists and the explorer Jacob Adabet, 20, can do with their minds. I think these corridors, galactic highways of light, suggest that there are 3 speeds of light in the universe. I suspect that Einstein's constant, 186,000 miles per second, is the speed of light for 1D through 3D, a second speed of light governs 4D through 6D, and 7D through 9D are moving even faster. 21. Just to speculate a bit, what could be traveling in these corridors? Muons, the quintessential higher dimensional light frequencies, vibrate in the light spectrum as the background particles of cosmic radiation that stretch time. 22. Maybe the highways are muon bands. Magalhães and a colleague investigated connections between a form of geometry in which space-time appears atomized, as well as M-theory. 23. They discovered that high-frequency photons speed up, and the speed is color-dependent. Physicists are actively pursuing a color-dependent variable speed of light, which I think will be the key to detecting scientifically the structure of the dimensions. Even though these concepts may seem very difficult to us today, thousands of years ago our ancestors were in divine communion, through sound, with the tiny and potent vibrating strings and cosmic black holes that end up manifesting bodies that spin and orbit in the universe. Stone Age soundtracks and megalithic music makers. The British archaeologist Paul Devereux recently studied the acoustical properties of Paleolithic caves and megalithic structures in France and Spain. These caves, which were used 40,000 to 12,000 years ago, have beautiful paintings. Those who painted them were very sensitive and intelligent. Many have tried to get into the mindset of these ancient ones, and Devereux offers his own theory. He has discovered that the caves have acoustical properties, and the cave people probably maintained an artistic culture thousands of years before the 12 tribe nations. See Chapter 6 by using sacred sound techniques. 24. This, of course, is another form of Michel and Ron's enchantment. I will consider these cave people first and then will follow up with early use of sound during the Neolithic era. This discussion is based on the main thesis of my book Catastrophobia 2001, which posits that a great cataclysm that occurred in 9500 BC ended the Paleolithic era. Survivors of the cataclysm were afflicted with collective trauma, and ancient science seems to have been lost over a long span of time. Paleolithic and Neolithic people understood sound in ways that we have long since forgotten, which may have been caused by the trauma our ancestors experienced at that critical time in our collective history. The key Paleolithic caves have various red ochre and black dots, lines, and symbols that mark the acoustical properties of stalactites and stalagmites as if they are vaulted acoustical pipes. See Figure 7.6. The marks indicate where the dominant resonances in the caves are located, and most paintings are located in places of the greatest resonance. Devereux calls the musical stalactites of Dordogne Cave, France, lithophones and speculates they were used for cave concerts. 25. Musicians and singers have experimented with using these caves as gigantic instruments, and they have noticed that the markings indicate where the human voice has optimal resonance. 26. As well as which cave features make sound. Imagine being in one of these caves in utter darkness, or possibly with torches lighting the paintings, and in the shadows of the stalactites, music emerges. Imagine the resonations in the minds of our ancient ancestors, who may have realized that their brains were frequency-receiving organs. Figure 7.6 Lithophones. The Paleolithic Cognac Cave, France, with stalactites and stalagmites that appear to be vaulted acoustical pipes. There is much evidence in hunting symbology and magic indicating that the ancient ones used their minds very intentionally. In modern times, the Hopi of Arizona make rain by using frequencies in their brains to alter frequencies in the air. 27. The mind can alter events by intentionality if a person absolutely believes he or she can change reality with the mind. I think the people who worked with sound frequencies in Paleolithic caves used their brain frequencies, coupled with attunement to 2D earth forces, to manage their lives and get what they needed. For example, the hunters could go into an altered state and experience hunting down an animal, and then when they went on the hunt, they knew where to go and when to act. Most people have forgotten how to do this, although I've often seen fishermen using these skills, and I think this is why modern people continue to hunt and fish. The film Winged Migration, mentioned earlier, shows birds operating on these levels. We have few remains of the Paleolithic people except in the ceremonial caves. In those days people mostly lived by the sea, which rose hundreds of feet after the 9500 BC cataclysm and destroyed their living places. Their ceremonial caves were inland and higher than the rising sea. Archaeologists and anthropologists have assumed the people were primitive and undeveloped based on the assumption that they lived in the caves. Instead, these caves were their temples, not their dwellings, and they give evidence of a very advanced sound technology. Following the cataclysm in 9500 BC, there is evidence of advanced acoustical science among the megalithic cultures starting around 8,000 years ago. The megalithic people in the British Isles and on the western coasts of France and Spain built circles of standing stones and various interior stone temples, such as beehive and passage cairns. Devereux did an extensive study of the radial and horizontal acoustical standing wavelengths in these structures. 28. By generating and analyzing sound waves in various locations in cairns, he discovered that they were constructed to enhance the adult male vocal range, 90 to 120 Hz. Devereux worked extensively in Newgrange, which is a gigantic passage cairn in the Boyne Valley of Ireland. 29. Newgrange was built to capture the light of the winter solstice through a roof box above the passage, which projects the sun's rays onto spirals carved in the back of the inner sanctum. See Figure 7.7. Great standing waves of 110 Hz were generated by male chanting, which would have sent otherworldly tones out through the roof box as the winter solstice sunlight came in. Singing and oracular sounds are very enhanced in this chamber, and the ancient ones left even more evidence for what they were doing there. Figure 7.7 Newgrange, the Great Passage Cairn in Ireland's Boyne Valley. When the wave frequencies are graphed, they make patterns like a seismograph, and there are similar notations for sounds. Devereux noticed that 5,000-year-old spirals and patterns on the walls looked similar to his own modern sound graphs. The wall symbols look like sinusoidal arrangements of alternating nodes and antinodes. He concluded that the carvings illustrate the sound waves that were generated during the rituals. The ritualists at Newgrange could see sound waves. Devereux proposed they might have induced synesthesia, sound-induced experiences of color, such as the shaman seeing shimmering colors while taking ayahuasca. 30. See Chapter 6. He also proposed they might have used smoke or incense during their rituals as a medium for revealing the patterns of the standing waves. Following this idea, researchers made sound waves in a dark cairn, and as the rays of the sun shone through the mist, patterns of standing waves became visible. Newgrange may be a megalithic cymatics machine with smoke as the medium. 31. Whatever the megalithic people were doing, they knew a lot about wave frequencies, which have only been rediscovered in the last 100 years. They knew how to construct devices to feel and see the waves, which was important to them for some reason. Of course, the capacity for synesthesia may be related to the potential human ability to detect the color-coded variable speeds of light. That may be what projects our minds into very high dimensions. Carnac is a great seismograph. Carnac and the stone complexes in and around the Gulf of Morbihan in France's Brittany, the whole complex referred to as Carnac, comprise the largest and most complex megalithic site on the planet. The standing stones of Carnac are set in 10 to 12 rows that run parallel to each other for about 5 miles, and many of these stones weigh 50 tons, figure 7.8. The Grand Menhir Brisé, which has fallen, is 350 tons and once stood 65 feet tall. Jerry and I visited Carnac during the fall equinox of 2002 after reading about the research of a French engineer, Pierre Marot, who had studied Carnac for 30 years. 32. Marot wanted to know why anyone would go to all this trouble. Why were they built? Why in this location? Figure 7.8. The great avenues of huge standing stones at Carnac, France. Marot began with an analysis of the geology, fault lines, the effects of granite and quartz rocks, seismic activity over time, magnetic and gravitational anomalies, as well as the local myths and site names. His first conclusion was that the rows of standing stones had to have been directed by a scientist, a priest in those days, for a reason. Some stones are inscribed with scientific-looking hammers, cup marks, and lines. The region is very seismically active, and Marot thinks this action occurs because gigantic volumes of tidal water rush into the Gulf and suck back out. The weight of the water is the cause of the numerous earthquakes, and the greatest effect is during certain times of the year. This zone has great seismic activity because of many geological faults, the thinness of the crust, and the enormous amount of water flowing in and out. The thin neck of the Gulf makes the volume of water into a periodic reservoir. Dolmens are constructions that have huge flat balanced rocks resting on the points of standing stones, with a corridor leading into a chamber. The flat capstones oscillate when the ground moves, which is frequent in this area of Brittany. Over 90% of the dolmens and their corridors are oriented in the same direction along fault lines running through the region. The standing stones and dolmens mark the fault lines. Reviewing 30 or more significant quakes in the 20th century, Marot found that the epicenters are usually in the faults. He also found that where there are no megaliths, there are no quakes. The quakes mostly occurred between the fall and spring equinoxes, but not from late March to early September. Also, this region responds strongly to the new and full moons, which cause a tidal effect. He studied the many carvings of so-called axe plows, figure 7.9, in various strategic locations, and concludes they are megalithic seismographs that measured the strength of quakes. He made one of his own as a model, and it worked. Marot has made a strong case for the possibility that Carnac was a megalithic geological university where a priestly elite taught students about Earth vibrations, a site where 2D was very active and generated powerful periodic forces. Figure 7.9 model of an axe plow, made by Pierre Marot from a drawing of an axe plow, found etched on a wall at Pen Hope, Gulf of Morbihan, France. I agree with Marot and think Carnac is loaded with acoustical properties that could be used to create standing waves for mental enhancement and healing. Regarding the conditions 6,000 years ago, the magnetic field of Earth was much stronger than it is now. This might mean that the ancient people knew more about how to exploit magnetism. The human body is an electromagnetic apparatus that is extremely affected by EM fields, and Marot found much evidence that the ancient people were experts at detecting magnetism. There must have been a reason for measuring quakes at this complex site. Marot believes the people were very advanced healers using magnetism. He suggests the stones were erected because of their field effects on the human body. I have often felt energy in standing stones. 33. Often it is stronger according to cycles such as solstices and equinoxes. More specifically, Marot wonders if some of their research was for fecundity, the ability to reproduce, which may have been a critical issue 6,000 years ago after the Earth changes. 34. Did they know how to create sound waves that could heal DNA or enhance reproduction? Given the drastic drop in fertility rates in Europe and North America, we may soon need to recover this science. The reason I agree with Marrow that Karnak was a healing center is because of an experience I had in John Beaulieu's Sound and Healing Seminar. John taught us how to heal with tuning forks. Tuning forks, properly calibrated, can instantly harmonize our physical bodies. Organs that are out of resonance move back into harmony by being vibrated at their specific frequency by means of the tuning forks. This actually works, however, clients tend to avoid these sessions, probably because the healing is so fast. For example, when a person gets his liver reharmonized, instantly all the emotions that cause the imbalance in the first place must be faced. Tuning fork frequencies also may unlock ancient trauma. 35. Our species is suffering major post-traumatic stress syndrome, and our organs are holding much archaic pain and fear. When this gets released, we ripple with the force and then are forced to do a lot of heavy clearing. Perhaps the people at Karnak 6,000 years ago had greater difficulties with trauma locks than we do, since the cataclysm was closer to them in time. Within the Karnak region, the crust was moving a lot when the seas were rising, and the land was rising as the weight of the ice lifted. Their teachers must have known, judging by the lengths they went to build these complexes, that the people needed to raise their vibratory fields to release this trauma. The regular quakes would have created incredible standing sound waves that would have caused the stones to oscillate strongly, like huge tuning forks. The people probably came to Karnak during new and full moons, and fall and spring equinoxes, to experience this huge vibrational sound complex for healing and knowledge. We are the ones who are not developed enough yet to detect their science. The land must have sung to the stars and balanced the people as they bathed their bodies in the sound waves. They knew a lot about how sound receives light. It is we who are only beginning to remember. 8. The eighth dimension, the divine mind. Opening meditation. Find your breath. Find a column of light following your breath, from the top of your head to the bottom of your spine. Take your time, and let the light find you, as you find the light inside yourself. Let your gaze be soft, and using your inner sight, see yourself as a column of white light. See your whole body as light. See yourself relaxed, and whole, and radiant. This is your light body. This is your higher self. Place your tongue lightly on the roof of your mouth. Breathe. See yourself as transparent, as pure energy. Stay perfectly still, and relaxed, and continue to breathe in even breaths. Notice you are able to observe yourself as you do this. Place your attention on the crown of your head. Let your next breath enter your body through this area. You may feel sensations at your crown. Simply notice them, and continue to breathe gently. Now, using your senses, take notice of what is around you. Do you see something, or someone? Do you hear anything? What is it telling you? Can you taste or smell anything? What is it? Honor your senses, they are here to assist you. Take your time. This is like prayer. It goes on until it is done. This message is just for you. Ask your higher self, what is the teaching here? What teaching is there for my light body today? See if you can get a message, a sensory image. You will know when it is completed. Now, put your focus back on your light body, and the column of light, with each breath. Let your eyes begin to focus on the space around you, and return to your awareness of yourself in your physical body and the room where you are sitting. The eighth dimension is the realm of the divine mind, light, that manifests through the visible light spectrum in 3D. The frequencies of 8D are actually much faster than the sound waves of 7D in the galactic photon bands, which is why mystics report being blinded by the light. The eighth dimension is the organizational field of light, where the energetic spin dynamics of sacred geometry originate. These dynamics then step down by octaves into 7D sound, before configuring as geometric light forms in 6D. The all-encompassing energetic realm of 8D is the reason we feel the love of God as a constant energy source in our lives. As energy moves down through the dimensions to the iron core crystal, each dimension becomes more dense and material. And as we move up through the dimensions to the galactic center, the planar fields get larger. See Chapter 5, Figure 5.2. The planar fields become larger and more filled with space the higher up we go, and finally their diameters become limited by the increasing number of creations within them. The first dimension is incredibly dense, while the 8D geometric forms hold the vertical axis. Even though 8D generates 7D sound that forms 6D geometric configurations that eventually flow down into 3D creations, the Ps say the only way we can directly contact 8D is by entering the mind of the Sun. 1. Praying to the Sun attunes indigenous people to solar wisdom, especially during the equinoxes and solstices. Sacred geometry and gravity are the forces that hold the planar fields on the vertical axis, while the vibrating strings in all matter hold the frequency ranges of the different dimensions by resonance. This is why most people intuitively know that the divine mind is real and omnipotent. Yet, because of this awesome connectivity, it is easy for clever manipulators to use God as a program. I do not like the word God because of the prevailing programs run by organized religions, so here I will define this 8D force simply as the light, or the divine mind. The Ps say that 8D is managed by the Galactic Federation, a group of great intelligences that we can actually work with in 3D. The Federation manages many libraries in the Milky Way stars, such as our Sun and Alcyone. The Federation inhabits the dark nuclear center of the galaxy, the womb of pure creativity, and it emanates thought by means of sacred geometry. Within the potent dark vortex, the divine mind expands and contracts by waves of time as our hearts send out incarnational timelines from the darkness inside our bodies. To get a new understanding of 8D frequency ranges, we must first thoroughly understand the God Poison program, which is used by the elite to control humanity. See Chapter 4. This program always describes the light in terms of 4D entities. Any dimensional description of the light that is lower than 8D is false. Personification of the light, such as Yahweh, blocks our access to the light. Defining the light in history mocks this great mind. Point 2. No one knows anything about the light except what each one feels in the silent recesses of his or her heart. Such consciousness cannot be identified or described with words or concepts, it can only be experienced. The light is not the same as any god or mythical being that has ever interacted with any human, since historical gods operate at the 4D level. Their dramas are like human dramas, such as the antics of the Greek gods and Yahweh's wars. The light simply guides the quality of existence for all beings in all dimensions by emitting frequencies. These frequencies then become sound, which forms geometry that emanates worlds. The light shivers in ecstatic creation, which can be felt in nature. The Galactic Federation organizes access to the light, and we can learn how to access the Federation as well as the Sun. As with any cooperative adventure, how well we know our cohorts enhances this process. Thus beings and gods can help us access the light, which is a higher frequency than they are. Indigenous people have conscious relationships with the Sun and many advanced beings, such as the Manitou. Point 3. The Federation works with the plans and desires in our minds because we were created in the solid world to reflect consciousness back to the light. We are mirrors for the light. When our desires are ethical, pure, and all-knowing, they carry high frequency ranges. Since 1998, when the Sun moved into the photon band, the high councils of the Federation are open to any human who cherishes life and is wise. All we have to do is ask for divine assistance. This is the quintessential moment for Earth. Many souls are here now because Earth is no longer just a place to learn from our experiences. Instead, Earth is a Galactic Federation school from 1987 through 2012. This means each one of us is reaping our karma directly. A rich timeline is ending, and our personal incarnational timelines are awakening in our hearts. By denying the feminine, humanity has split reality, and since 1998 collective humanity is functioning in a reality split. Two operative worlds exist right in 3D, as if two movies were running simultaneously. What each individual contributes is of cosmic significance. Those who are working with the Federation to transmute Earth's biology are experiencing Earth's ascension, 9 dimensions opening simultaneously in 3D. Those who do not cherish life are experiencing the apocalypse described by Saint John of Patmos in Revelation. According to the Ps, the keepers of 8D are the beings in the Orion star system, which is seen as the Great Hunter, hovering over the equator. It is one of the most beautiful constellations in the night sky. Due to Earth's degree tilt, Orion moves very high and low on the horizon. Point 4. If Earth's axis tilted only 11,500 years ago, as I speculated in Catastrophobia, then Orion is now at its highest position in the sky since the catastrophe of 9500 BC. According to ancient Egyptian sacred science, when Orion rises high, humans become wise. The Ps say the most exciting thing about Earth's ascension will be that each one of us will be able to feel the frequencies of all the lifeforms, even our own. As we learned earlier, the Amazonian shamans can see the molecular essence of life. Someday, scientists will invent instruments that can detect frequencies forming matter. Just by loving matter and organic life, we can feel these frequencies. What do you feel, for example, when you watch tadpoles oscillating in pond water as they absorb their tails and grow their legs? By teaching workshops that explore 9 dimensions, Jerry and I have found that many students have difficulty contacting 8D because they live in a world controlled by the New World Order, which has collapsed the higher dimensions into 4D. Our students often work in schools, hospitals, government, and industry, yet because America's ethical standards have deteriorated in the last 50 years, many of them function in jobs that do not serve the greatest good. They are often asked to carry out orders that contradict their beliefs. The antidote to this is to understand how the citizens of the United States fell under the control of the global elite in the first place. America was originally founded by people who traveled across the oceans to escape imperialism and religious persecution, and most of all, to be free. The business of America is business. The United States became a significant economic player on the world stage in the mid-19th century, when its aggregate of business and agricultural wealth became large enough to influence the world. These Americans were an industrious lot. There were many opportunities, people came from all over the world to build businesses and begin new lives. America's agenda was business. Once there was enough money changing hands, people in power adopted the pyramid, a system that was invented by European aristocrats and has been described well by British researcher David Icke. Point 5. Pyramids are used to organize large systems, such as banks, corporations, schools, and governments. See Figure 8.1, because the pyramids take on a life of their own once they get started. Pyramids force people to do what the elite wants and make it very hard to see who is running the show when you are in the middle of them, yet it all becomes obvious once the pyramids are exposed. Point 6. The bottom of the pyramid is occupied by the workers. The workers are supervised by lower-level managers, who keep their jobs by obeying orders. The lower managers get their orders from middle managers, and they must do as they are told. If a middle manager tells a lower manager to make the workers do something that is dishonest or evil, such as putting the workers in dangerous or unpleasant working conditions, the lower manager has to obey these orders or risk being fired. Consequently, that manager becomes ill-tempered, unhappy, and eventually sick. The middle managers are given their orders by higher managers. They may not like these orders, but they must send them down through the lower managers. The higher managers get orders from officers in the company, who get orders from the executive branch, who get orders from boards, banks, corporate owners, and politicians. Everybody struggles in the pyramid system to keep their jobs, and the person at the very top reaps the profits. People working in the highest levels of the pyramid make the most money, and they have the most to lose by not obeying their higher-ups. People in the middle and high ranges are forced to dress and live in a manner befitting their position, and they are usually in debt and cannot quit. It is easy to force them to do things that are unethical because they are supporting their families. People working in the lower levels are dispensable, and they often quit or get fired. They can collect unemployment and move on to another low-paying job, which ensures the low-level working pool. Poor ethics, greed, and control disseminate from the top down, and anybody who does not agree can always quit. Figure 8.1 The global elite pyramid structure. Everybody is in debt except the people at the very top, who have huge amounts of money. However, these people can be kept in place by blackmail. Data on their private lives is collected, just in case it will be useful later. Anyone who gets honest and tries to change the system is a threat. Whistleblowers, who often lose their jobs and sometimes their families, are in great danger. This self-perpetuating system gives great control, financial rewards, and freedom to the people at the top, who are then controlled by political and financial systems that support their companies. Through pyramids in corporations and large systems, the elite runs America. This is why the dollar has a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top. Occasionally, people at the top create a fleecing, when a pyramid is collapsed and the resources are moved elsewhere, as occurred with Enron. This often happens when the whistleblowers appear. The people at the very top of big pyramids, such as the Federal Reserve System, are given orders by a few of the richest families in the world. This system is what perpetuates the outrageous level of human disempowerment in the world today. The reason most people get stuck in meaningless jobs and lives is because they follow orthodox belief systems. Point 7. In my life, I've watched many people disempower themselves by seeking the divine, instead of just finding it in nature or in other beings by loving them. Everything is arranged so that the most people get sucked in and trapped, since they are always seeking things and answers instead of just experiencing life. Let us leave the pyramid concept for a moment to consider 8D science. The science of the eighth dimension. We've already learned about the piano keyboard and how octaves double until we are out of the audible frequency range. If we keep on doubling these vibrations, eventually we get to the visible light spectrum (VLS), which vibrates at much higher frequencies than sound. When we see a color, we are seeing a frequency that vibrates by millions of hertz Hz. Since we hear sound and see color, and science has exactly measured the number of pulses per second that create these things, then we have the capacity to imagine very high dimensions by doubling the octaves, even though we rarely perceive them by our senses. Regarding the whole hertz range, there are no pulses at the bottom, while the highest frequency is white light that travels at 186,000 miles per second. The electromagnetic spectrum chart of Hertz frequencies defines the edge of 3D as the speed of light. There are many other things going on in 3D that we cannot see or hear but that we can measure, such as radio waves and gamma rays. Therefore we can be sure of the existence of very high vibratory ranges, as well as the possibility of the light. Recently, scientists have measured light at higher frequencies than Einstein's constant, for example, at 300 times faster than the normal range of white light. 8. Of course, going faster than the speed of light takes us beyond light as the edge of 3D. What could that be? We have to think about this even to have a context for what is going on in 8D. As I said in Chapter 7, some scientists have been speculating that there may be 3 speeds of light. 9. Light in 3D would be the slowest speed, and this opens up the possibility that each of the 3 groupings of 9 dimensions, 1D through 3D, 4D through 6D, 7D through 9D, functions by increasing speeds of light. This might explain why we can perceive the lower dimensions easily, yet why we struggle so hard to go beyond them. The VLS represents a range we can perceive, and the 2D ranges are much lower but measurable. For example, infrasound, which travels under the surface, is below the human audible range, and the 1D core vibrates at 40 Hz. Considering 4D through 6D, the light frequencies that oscillate the 6D geometric light forms must be vibrating much higher than 3D light, since we cannot see these geometric forms. Yet they replicate patterns in 3D that evidence the 6D geometry. The geometric vibrations flow down into 5D pulsations of love, which are experienced but usually not seen. Moving down, the 4D dualities and polarities of our feelings are so palpable that they run most people's lives. However, feelings cannot be seen, except by some auric fields. Since we humans recognize the traces of higher dimensions in nature and we live by intense feelings, we can be sure higher realms are there. However, when we consider 7D through 9D, nothing we commonly experience leads us into these realms. 10. Recently, astronomers have been tearing down this perceptual wall by studying the nuclear processes of stars. As have been seeking analogues for the incredible frequency ranges in the 7D galactic photon bands, the 8D light, and 9D time waves, science has been heading in the same direction. I am beginning to think the Pleiadian agenda came in as a full-blown cosmology in 1995 because it was the same year that string theory successfully related the microcosm to the macrocosm. The higher three dimensions must function by very high speeds of light, which helps us grasp the nature of the divine mind. Each dimension is a wave plane or planar field, and our minds, whether we know it or not, are receiving devices for all these waves, as if our brains were vertical axis radios. We greatly underestimate the power of our minds, especially as we wander into high-frequency bands, where most of us get spacey and ungrounded. The antidote is to think of sacred geometry imbued with 8D force, since geometry and gravity hold the dimensional wave planes in form. How might 8D organizational structure and 1D gravity function as the forces that hold the dynamics of the vertical axis? We've already looked at how 6D vibrating forms replicate as lifeforms in 3D, yet a short recap is needed. The nautilus shell always grows by the Fibonacci spiral, as do the sunflower and other similar flowers. The golden mean phi math ratio of 1.618 determines the spiral, which is the basis of materialization. At the subatomic level, spin generates primal movement, which begins any materialization. By 8D movement, these factors of spirals relate the material world to the world of geometric forms. We can even see the golden mean in the spiralic bones in the human ear. According to science, the golden mean spiral spins energy from one state to another by shifts in frequency ranges. A simple geometric form, such as a circle or square, vibrates at a lower frequency, while a more complex form, like a spherical icosahedron made of 20 triangular faces, vibrates faster. The traces of these phase transitions can be seen with cymatics machines. Each frequency range generates different geometric patterns, which explains how there can be so many designs that become more complex. The most successful way to envision the light is to contemplate the Fibonacci spiral, the golden mean known geometrically as phi, because it shows how geometric fields can grow and contract in size. It is possible to fit geometric shapes inside one another, giving them a nested look, as I described earlier in regard to the holographic monad that birthed the Pleiadian agenda. The only way you can execute this process is to trace how the nodes, the tips of the platonic solids that touch the encasing sphere, move relative to each other. The way to trace the movement from node to node is with a spiraling line, specifically the golden mean, which is related to musical frequencies through mathematics. Chapter 10 shows this principle in action by means of crop circles, which by their appearance each summer in fields in England are making the light more and more comprehensible to all of us. Here I will drop to a simpler level by offering two visuals that show in a very subtle way how things expand by the golden mean. The first visual, see figure 8.2, is a drawing that shows how the Fibonacci spiral works with the platonic solids. Notice first that the two-dimensional spiral makes huge expansion possible, then is drawn with a few curves, follow it out with your eye by its phi ratio, 1.618, and move it off the page. Next, notice that in light of the spiral's geometry, the triangles, it appears as a cone. This three-dimensional spiral is called a conical helix. Herein lies the path to imagining the breadth of the light. The next visual, figure 8.3, opens our minds to this idea. The two-dimensional aspect is a drawing of the Julia set, an exquisite triple fractal crop circle that was 1,000 feet in diameter and appeared in 1996. The visual makes the Julia set into a three-dimensional form by adding its spherical component and its tetrahedral geometry, which pulls the spiraling arms into dancing cosmic waves. We will be contemplating the 10th dimension, the vertical axis itself, by studying crop circles as visual manifestations of the light in our times. This spherical, ratcheting expansion of tetrahedral geometry along fractal-based spiral pathways is a painting of the light in Gaia. When light interacts with gravity, the rate of its molecular spin slows down 0.11. This is how the form and color of objects and organisms are determined. The 3D frequency waves generated from oscillating 6D configurations are held at a certain level by gravity. That is, ideas step down into reality as gravity emanates waves through the dimensions. It is a fact that gravity holds together Earth, solar systems, galaxies, and the universe. Yet, because its effect is so minimal at the subatomic level, scientists are puzzled by it. Also, the 8D geometric force vibrates within each string at the microcosmic level. Thinking of gravity as the force of light in nature, gravity is the weakest yet most directive force in 3D. Imagine its immensity and power in the lower dimensions where its molecular spin is much slower due to density than it is in 3D. Imagine its gigantic reach and inconceivable huge spaces in the higher planes. In 1998, 3 physicists suggested that if some of the extra dimensions, according to superstring theory, were as much as a millimeter larger, this could explain why gravity is such a weak force. They went on to suppose that gravity is comparable to the other forces in nature, strong and weak nuclear forces and electromagnetism, because it is diluted by propagating through the extra dimensions, while the other forces are confined to 3D.12. Science may never measure gravity at the subatomic level because it steps down so far, yet it is a connective force as the dimensions ascend by frequencies to 8D. Gravity is the macrocosmic energy that holds the universe together, therefore gravity is a real force at the subatomic level, which the string theorists are describing. Meanwhile, our students report many direct experiences with the 8D divine mind by detecting it in their 3D lives. How to do this emerges by considering the pyramid structure again. Collapsing the New World Order pyramids. Many of our students have been changing their lives with a simple technique that enables anyone to work directly with 8D. However, using this technique can totally alter your life. For example, you might quit a job or change a partner. Be very aware of these possibilities when you consider this information. It is best to work at the 8D level intentionally, only when you are certain you can accept whatever changes come in your life. This is the technique that gives each of us our vote in our world, since it collapses the pyramids that cull our personal power. You have been living with a dilemma in your life. You are working in a group, factory, company, school, or hospital, and you are forced to participate in things that are happening around you that are wrong or even abusive. You have been losing energy and feel bad. The excellent work you could be doing is seriously compromised by the system you work in. You know there is a better way, yet you know you could lose your job if you take action. You have reached the point where you have to do something or you'll quit, lose your mind, or stress out your partner, possibilities that are not a solution. You want to change this in spite of the consequences. Here is what you can do. Go to your altar or some place where you will not be disturbed. Have paper and pencil in case you need to make notes or draw pictures. Sit in your space and go into a deep place of contemplation. Consider all the parts of the dilemma. Who are the people and what are the roles and games? What are the related conditions, such as budgets, community influences, working conditions, and history of the situation? You may need to make drawings. Once you have a firm grasp on all the elements that are involved, enter into a deeper state of contemplation. Now that you have a firm grasp on the whole field, without thinking of changing any person or thing, or implementing any particular solution, bring yourself forward in the situation. As you come forward, tune into what you can feel as the highest potential resolution for this dilemma. What would be the very best way for this situation to resolve itself so that meaningful change could come? Do not limit your opinions. Remember not to think of any specific person, such as your boss taking a long holiday, or any specific thing happening, such as the building burning down. Once you can see the best result that you can imagine, picture it in your mind. Imagine seeing it all happen, then breathe a while and let it all go. Forget about this, and soon you will probably notice things changing around you. Pyramids function by the thoughts and actions of all the people involved in them, as well as the direction set by the higher-ups. This technique gives each person in the situation the same amount of power as the person at the top. There are many more people at the bottom than at the top, and often the people at the bottom think alike in the culture. If enough people at the bottom get clear about what they want, then the top breaks down and change follows. This principle has been amply demonstrated by people's groups that have changed realities. The P's say our world is changing because the Galactic Federation has direct access to us now because a significant number of us want to function in higher orders. And we are approaching the end of the Mayan calendar. Our personal intentions to live in a more ethical world are forming potent and massive group intentions. The mist for a humane world is thickening. Our ability to feel the power of our minds is greatly enhanced by learning to manifest, which is an 8D skill. Manifestation teaches us how to access the 8D potency in nature, which is a very high order of life. Manifestation. Just by being born in Gaia, you have the right to create the realities you want. The light simply emanates energy so that each being can experience life. I believe the solution to our current dilemma is for each of us to realize we have a vote and to use that vote. The voting machines in America are programmed by the elite now that they are computerized. 13. If you want to have your place back as a person who lives the way you want, practice this technique and watch what happens. Again, with a pad and pencil, go to a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Make a list of 3 to 9 things you would like to have or create, and state clear timelines and circumstances around these desires. For example, if you ask for a cleaning lady, make sure you have a salary limit, how soon she should manifest, and whether you will drive her to work or not. Be specific, otherwise you might get one you have to drive for miles. It is simply not appropriate to use such high-dimensional techniques to manifest non-essentials like Cadillacs, fur coats, and diamonds. But, if you need a car or coat to get to work, go for it. You cannot ask for a specific person, only a partner, and you can specify which gender. You cannot manifest things that manipulate other people, since that takes their vote away. Once you have your list, do the following technique for each item on your list. 14. Put the image of the thing you want into your mind and make sure the time, conditions, and probable changes in your life are very clear. Once you have it firmly in mind, imagine it actually happening in your life, and then ask yourself the following question: if I could have it, would I take it? You may be surprised to discover that sometimes you don't want something. Knowing what you do not want clears your mind of the junk that keeps you from knowing what you do want. When your mind is littered with desires, the light can't penetrate the shadows. With your wish in mind, do 3 visualizations of scenes that portray the manifestation happening in your life. For example, see the cleaning lady knocking on the door, cleaning up the house with a smile on her face, and leaving the house with her money in hand. Never see this person as a specific person because then you would be influencing another person with your mind. This is against the laws of karma, it does not work anyway, and it can really mess you up. It is conjuring. As you sense the proper visualization for each scene, close your eyes and see the first image in your third eye, the place between and above your eyebrows. Once it is clear in your third eye is a little picture, then transfer the image to the back of your skull to the place where your neck connects with your skull, medulla oblongata, and see your medulla as a television screen. 15. Hold the image on the screen and strengthen it visually as much as you can, make it crackle, then go on to the next scene, and do the same thing again. Once you have visualized all 3 scenes, then say, so be it. Do the same technique with the other wishes, then end your session and forget all about it, but keep your list. In a few months or a year, check your list, and you will be amazed how often things happened in the time frame you listed. Use the technique again when you feel like things are not moving along, when you feel stuck. The more you create your life with this simple manifestation technique, the more you will learn the power of your mind and experience the magic of God. You literally can create almost anything. The divine mind does not assist you unless you ask. Things may not manifest the way you think they should because 8D beings use 3D in a way that works from a much greater perspective. For example, I remember a young woman, not my student, who manifested the love of her life. Instead of a man, she got a daughter when she was single. That little girl turned out to be the love of her life. You may not realize you've actually created things for many years until you see how things come magically to you. Often how things work out is miraculous. According to the Pleiadian agenda, the moon has a huge influence on what we want because the moon reflects our desires to the sun, where our access to the 8D library is located. There are some great lunar techniques for using the power of our minds, which add to the solar power. First, let us see what the Ps have to say about how the moon influences our world.